Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 162. It's Wednesday, the 27th of June. Man, the year has really swung by quickly, and it's freezing here in Melbourne. Casper, I always say this before every episode that we do of Submission Radio, but it seems to be getting progressively colder here. I'm wearing a t-shirt. I'm taking one for the team. It is a sexy t-shirt. It's got Muhammad Ali on it. I like to wear it at night. He looks over me when I sleep before a big episode of Submission Radio. But yeah, it's great to be back. Last week, we had the baddest man on the planet, Stipe Miocic, on the program. And then this week, I'm really excited about the lineup, Cass. A really eclectic bunch.
Yeah, we've got. It's almost like the United Nations of guests here. We've got some Aussies, we've got some Kiwis, we've got some people from the States.
We've got Javier Mendez.
We've got Marc Raimondi
from another planet because he's so good.
We've got Javier Mendez. He's got the Latin demographic covered, so it's a little bit of everything. Kicking off the show, we've got Jake Matthews. He got a big win at UFC Singapore this past weekend, so we want to bring him on the program to talk about that. In general, what's happening in his life, what he wants to do next, and I guess the Singapore experience overall. We've got Dan Hooker joining us. Also, Israel Adesanya. So both guys both train together. Dan Hooker describes them as frenemies. They're fighting back-to-back. They're like Drake, back-to-back. Like the Lethal Weapon cover, back-to-back. So you got Dan Hooker fighting UFC 226 against Gilbert Burns the night before Israel Adesanya takes on Brad Tavares in the TUF 27 finale. Main event. Very excited to be chatting to both guys. Two separate interviews. Each get their own time. Javier Mendez, I mean, it's UFC 226 season, essentially. Next week is a big preview show, but this week we've got Javier Mendez talking about Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic, UFC 226. Also, I want to get a few things on Khabib Nurmagomedov as well. There's these rumors about Khabib versus Conor at UFC 229, so there's a lot to talk to Javier Mendez about. Also, Tito Ortiz. Haven't had the man on the program since this Chuck Liddell fight started floating around, so we want to get the latest. What's going on with that? Is it going to be with Goldenboy? Is it potentially going to be with Bellator? How's he feeling? How's he looking in training? What exactly is the motivation here? And there's a lot to talk to Tito about. And also, you mentioned him, Marc Raimondi from MMA Fighting, joining us on the program, talking about a bunch of things, isn't he, Dennis?
Yeah, well, it's going to be exciting to have Marc on. We love having him on the show, and obviously some big changes at MMA Fighting. Luke Thomas taking over the MMA. I just want to talk to Marc a little bit about the change, what it was like when he found out Ariel was leaving, some of the fun things happening on the website, and then, of course, getting his thoughts on Josh Barnett leaving the UFC, the whole situation with USADA that might have sort of helped him make that decision. Lyoto Machida leaving as well, and his situation with USADA, that sort of helped as well, and a whole bunch more. So check that out. And Casper, we mentioned the t-shirt that I'm wearing. Everybody is on Skype today. So
yes,
if you have an opportunity and you like to sort of check out certain parts of the episode, you want to see Tito Ortiz in all his glory, and you're listening to iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, one of the many great platforms you can listen to the program on, Podcast One. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Submission Radio AU. Jump on that. If you haven't subscribed, why not subscribe? It's fun. It's fun to press buttons on the internet.
It's free and it's harmless as well.
No virus, that's promised. And you guys will be able to check out the guests in all their glory on video. So check that out. A quick reminder as well, Facebook.com/Submission Radio AU, at Submission AUS on Twitter. Our DMs are open. Of course, we are now on Instagram, so give us a follow on Instagram. I like to jump on Instagram and throw on old school photos, Cass, of some of our trips to Las Vegas, some of our trips to New York, some of our trips covering the UFC here locally. I have a fun photo on stock, and I will be posting this week only on Instagram. So if you guys want to check out our Instagram, it's a great time to do it. Follow it there. A lot of great memories.
Can you give me a hint on this photo, or is it top secret under wraps?
Top secret under wraps, but there's a lot of great content on there. If you guys go on there, you'll be able to see us in front of the Seinfeld restaurant. If you guys go on there, you'll be able to see us with Penn and Teller. There's a lot of great photos on there. If you guys go on there, you'll be able to see us with an old man in a mankini in Las Vegas, the unofficial fourth member of Submission Radio. So a lot of stuff to check out on our Instagram. Jump on, give us a follow. It is different to our Facebook and Twitter. We're trying to keep it all separate because we all know it's a bit boring when it's the same stuff across everything. Also, it keeps you in touch with all the latest Submission Radio stuff, any emergency episodes, and all the exciting stuff coming up. So a lot of stuff there, Cass. But like you mentioned, A big episode of Submission Radio coming up. We have our first guest on the line, and I believe you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys. Our next guest is coming off an excellent win this past weekend at UFC Singapore, choking out Shinsho Anzai in the first round and looking like a physical specimen in the process. Straight of our neck of the woods in Melbourne, Jake Matthews, welcome back to the show. How are you, man?
Yeah, good, man. Thanks for having me on. Everything's going well. Body feels good, and we got the nice quick win. That's what we want.
Well, how could we not have you on? Because that was, for me, one of the biggest wins of the card. Tell us, how does it feel to be home after such a successful trip to Singapore?
Yeah, it's always good to be home, and it's just that feeling that you can just relax now after however many weeks of training camp. I think this one was about 10 weeks. So it was actually a pretty hard training camp. This one, I had a chest infection.
Wow.
Even fight week, I was still very congested in the chest and coughing a lot. I had a few injuries on my ankle and my toe, so it was a bit to push through. But I think it's all for a reason, and we still got the win, which was good. And just good to be back home, have a relax now, and see what's next.
Wow, how tough was it to push through those injuries and also the chest infection? Was there any point where you doubted whether you'd make it to the fight, and did you feel it during the fight? Or was it impacting you during the fight itself as well?
Nah, it's just when the adrenaline kicks in, you don't feel anything during the fight. And there was no point where I was going to pull the fight. I had a feeling that it was going to be a quick fight. So, the chest infection didn't bother me too much. It was just more through training. It was very annoying. I mean, I wasn't able to kick at all this training camp.
Wow.
Especially with my left foot. And, just having the chest infection with sparring sessions, I'll only do about half the sparring session, so I might do 5 rounds instead of 10, and then it just become too irritating. So it was more annoying than anything, and but there was never any doubt that I'd still get the job done.
What did you think of fighting in Singapore and just Asia as a place? Did you enjoy your time over there? Did you have any issues sort of training, cutting the weight, anything like that?
Nah, the weight cut was I probably went in maybe a kilo heavier than I should have, and we had to cut a kilo extra in water weight than the last fight. But it was still easy, and I still came back 100% from it. And in comparison to when I used to cut the lightweight, it was still easy, so that was fine. I love Singapore was good. I mean, it didn't feel like we left Australia. It was a relatively short flight. It was only about 6 or 7 hours, and then the time difference is only 2 hours. So. So it wasn't, the time difference didn't affect us at all. There was no jet lag. We still trained hard throughout the week. Obviously, when you're not at home, it's harder to find the food that you like. But luckily I like food.
Bread
Asian
rolls.
Food, so it's fine.
Did you find some bread rolls after the fight?
We found a couple of really good, nice bakeries. I know I've been to the Philippines and all that a few times, and Singapore seemed similar, and they love their bakeries, so that was actually really good. And but yeah, so there's obviously a lot of carbs and stuff over there we had to try and avoid. But we found some good places to eat, and we just stuck to those.
There are obviously a lot of Aussies on the card. Did you see much of Tai Tuivasa going around preaching the word of the Shui? Did he come across you by any chance and talk to you about it?
Yeah, I saw Tai. I could hear him the whole week. But Tai's always good. Tai's always gets behind me and pumps him up for my fights, even when he's not fighting. He's
really. What does he
getting
say?
Around the hotel. Oh, he just says, probably nothing that I could say on the podcast.
It's an unrated show. You can say whatever you like, Jake.
But he just says, he pretty much it's all about the Aussie fighters, and he thinks we're one big army, and he just walks around, even when he's not fighting, like I said, he walks around the hotel and he just says, he talks you up, gets in your ear, and he just says, man, you got to smash this guy. He said, you can do it. He said, you're better than this guy. He just does it to all the fighters, all the Aussie fighters. And yeah, I told him the last fight, in the Li Jingliang fight, we pulled up to the venue in the bus, and he just stands up and he just says, let's just smash these blokes, boys. Let's just go out and smash them. And I was before that, I was a little bit nervous. And then once he said that, I just said to myself, I'm like, it's not hard to walk out and just smash them. And I just felt like we're one big army walking in. And I said to him after the fight, I said, man, you pumped me up for that fight.
Wow.
And we turned out to get the fight of the night, so it worked. And he knows that now, so he always gets in my ear before the fights, which is good. And having other guys around, Tyson and Jesse Jess was there. It was good. It made it a bit more familiar having some Aussies there.
A bit tough, though, because you came up victorious, but they had a bit of a rough night in the office.
Yeah, they had a rough night, but they both performed really well. I mean, I thought Tyson had that.
Yeah.
But not many people can say they've put over the same Prue on his backside with a right hand.
Yeah.
And Tyson, I think that was only his 5th fight in the UFC, and he's fighting guys like OSP already. I mean, he's going to be up there for sure soon, and it won't be long. And he just needs to, figure out whatever he did wrong, fix it, and eventually he won't be making mistakes in the fights. And once he can do that, then he's gonna get right up there, probably take that belt as well. And same for Jessie Jess. I mean, Jessica I's a veteran, and she went distance with her, and it was a close one until that last takedown. I reckon if it was despite that takedown, I reckon Jessie would have had it.
Yeah, for sure. And Tyson especially looked really good before, the actual fight ended. But just on the placement of your fight, the interesting thing is you mentioned Li Jingliang before. You beat him in Perth, and yet he was on the main card. You were on the prelims. How did you feel about that?
I know how it works. I've been around long enough for 10 fights now to realise that it's the entertainment business, and I know this event was for the Asian market, so that's why you see a lot of the Asian fighters up on the main card. As long as the UFC are sending me emails and saying to me you got fights, I'm happy. Doesn't matter where I am on the card, as long as I could be the first fight of the night and I'll be happy. I'm just here to fight. I'm not here to showboat and be up on the main card. It is nice to be on the main card, but whether I'm going to fight past prelims or the main event one day, then it's all the same to me.
We've spoken to you before, and you said how you're kind of having a bit more fun in your fights because your job isn't on the line. You looked like you had a lot of fun in this fight in Singapore. Was it one of the biggest fun fights that you had in the UFC thus far, would you say?
I still reckon the last fight in Perth was the most fun I've had.
You were beaming after that one. You were like on a high.
You almost lost an eye. You almost lost an eye in that fight.
And it was still fun. You got to be. I'm not quite right in the head, and you have to have that. But this fight seemed. I think in the last fight, I've shown my resolve a few times in the fights, and that I can push through some adversity and come back from being behind. But I did that in the last fight. But this fight in Singapore, I think I showed that I can be smart as well. I knew what he was going to do. I knew what I was going to do, and I knew I was going to finish it early. We've been working the knees a lot this whole training camp. Every time I'm shadow boxing, I've been throwing knees. I just had a feeling that I'm going to get a knee in this fight. And I came close to getting that first knee against the cage, but it just sort of just hit him in the chest. This fight, I felt like everything just clicked, and I was able to show the smarter side, which a lot of people on social media have picked up on. I was able to show that I could be smart, just stay relaxed, and not all my fights have to be wars.
Yeah, absolutely. And in general, I think the other thing that people picked up and the commentary team mentioned many times, you look like very, very physically imposing in there. And we heard you put on another couple of kilos of lean muscle. For those people in the States listening, it's 4.4 pounds. And, other than the confidence, how differently do you feel in there now compared to when you first debuted at 170 just over a year ago? It seems like you settled into the weight class really nicely.
Yeah, it didn't take me too long. It was just the first fight back. Just getting to know my body again. I used to fight welterweight when I was younger, but obviously fighting at lightweight for such a long time and being really, really fatigued from the weight cuts, you got to change your game plan a little bit. I couldn't go out there in my lightweight fights and just cut loose and tire myself out, because after those weight cuts, there's sort of no coming back. Whereas at welterweight, I can go 100% in the first round and then go back to the corner, and I can almost fully recover before the second round.
Wow.
Even though you don't see it in my face and I look tired and I'm sweating and I'm breathing hard, just the body just recoups a lot quicker. In my first fight back, I obviously coming off 2 losses, I wanted to get that win, so I was playing a little bit safe. Just getting to know my body again. I mean, Boyan was pretty big. He's one of the bigger welterweights, I think, and it's just not the right game plan to go out and wrestle a big guy for 3 rounds. Still paid off. But, I've learned now that my power's in my hands and my wrestling is there to complement my hands. So, just going to implement that into the rest of the fights, and hopefully they all end up like the last one.
Yeah, we see a lot of confidence in you, Jake. And after the win, you shouted, "I'm number one." Talk to us through that. What was going through your mind?
It was just, after you're winning a lot of fights and everyone's talking highly of you, and then you lose a couple. And then everyone comes out of the woodwork and just says, you're no good, and It was just a hype train, and that was all. That was all sort of just coming to mind straight after I won that fight, and I'm just, just saying to everyone, I'm here. I'm not a. Well, I wasn't a hype train that crashed. It was, things happen, whether it's, it's not so much to do with your ability per se, but I had things going on with the weight cuts and stuff that were affecting me, and it's more just telling the haters, just, hey man, I just finished, a strong opponent. He's 10-2 and he's in the UFC. He's no joke. And I just finished him in a couple of minutes, So there's so I'm here, and I can take out anyone in the welterweight division, I believe, as long as I do what I did and come and play it smart and use all my tools.
And I was going to say, I imagine it would have been hard to sort of come back from that, because I'm wondering if at one point you did have those doubts, when people were saying things about you and, he's on a bad run in his career and things like that. Now you're full of confidence. Now you 3 wins in a row, you're doing well in the welterweight division. But were there tough times where you sort of had doubts about yourself in any way?
No, I never had doubts about myself. It was just more, even still, people haven't seen. I know what I can do in the training room, and it was just about pretty much bringing what I do in the training room and in sparring sessions into my fights. And when I was younger, I used to do that, and that was because I was getting paid $200, and I didn't really, I wasn't too fussed if I lost or not. But now, now it's your job, and everything relies on it. There's more pressure, so you play it a little bit safer. So throughout my UFC career, I'm slowly learning each fight to bring more and more of what I do in training into the fight, and sometimes, throwing big combos and going wild, you're putting yourself out there, and you could, you possibly get clipped. But, that's the way I win fights. And when I play it safe and hold back, that's when I end up losing my fights. And those two fights that I lost at lightweight, they were, the 3 fights, that's what I did. I went out there, I didn't do what I normally do, and I lost the fight. So I always know what I can do in my fights, and I know that if I bring it into the fight, then there's no reason to doubt myself. And, I think I'm showing everyone that now.
Well, the other thing that's pretty crazy is since moving to 170, you've had 3 fights in just 7 months. I mean, how have you been able to keep such a busy schedule? And would you want to keep it up at this kind of pace? Or are you just sort of starting to feel like you might need a bit of a break?
After the last one in Perth, I was going to wait it out and wait for the next Australia card. But then I heard it wasn't going to be until, I think, the first week of December. So that's, and considering I just had 12 months off recently, I didn't want to have that long a break. So I thought we'll keep the ball rolling, jump back in. And then the UFC gave us the Singapore card, which I thought was perfect. Get some international experience, but at the same time, it's still close. There's no jet lag. Time difference is only small. So we decided to take that fight, and obviously it paid off and did well before we, get the fights back in the US. Just get used to doing the long haul flights and being in a different country. So that was the mindset behind taking this fight. But now I think I'll just, wait till that time around December or November, whenever the Australian card is. I think there's going to be one in China as well around November. So, China or Australia, I think will be my next one. And hopefully I can get a big name fighter, big name opponent for those.
Yeah, you could pull a Cowboy Cerrone, fight back to back, China 1 week, Australia the following week. No, but in all seriousness, you said you're hoping for a big name. I think you deserve it. 3 fights in a row at 170. Any names or anyone that you particularly have your eye on, or any sort of ballpark range that you're hoping for?
No, we've tried the call outs and all that before.
Yeah,
but
didn't work out with Sage Northcutt.
Yeah, I don't know if I need to talk more trash, but that's not me. I can't do that. I just
Jake Diaz.
I reckon. My mentality is just keep your mouth shut, go train hard and go fight hard, and just let my fighting do the talking for me. I'm just a typical Aussie. I'm just humble, like to go out there and show everyone what I can do, and I don't like to talk. I like to be able to have a beer with my opponent after the fight. That's that's the way I was brought up. So I can't do the trash talking thing. And I think to call someone out, you need to have that a little bit. When I've called people out in the past, they've either, like I said, one fighter actually messaged me and asked me to stop.
Really? Who was it? Yeah. Was the trash talk just too much?
Out,
Does it rhyme with
the guy who's sort of up there in the rankings in the welterweight division? Pretty much said, "Come fight."
Tyron Woodley.
No, I wasn't talking.
Why?
Actually, real nice guy, so I wouldn't trash talk.
Why did they ask you to stop? Were they bothered, or was it more like a sort of courteous, like, look, man, it's not going to happen, I wouldn't bother kind of thing?
No, I think it was more they were bothered by it.
Wow.
I think they just sense that I'm confident against them, and they're just not interested in fighting me. I know they actually have refused fights against some other fighters, and that just seems to be the thing in the welterweight division. People picking and choosing who they want. People posting up, I'm not getting any fights and I don't train hard to get fights, and then another fighter will comment and say, I'll fight you, and then they'll come back and say, nah, you're not on my level. It's like, man, we're here to fight, just fight whoever. I could argue that I probably should have had a bigger name fighter in my last fight, but man, they gave me the name and I said, I'll go and fight. That's what we're here to do. They could offer me, the champ tomorrow and I'll accept the fight. I'm not turning down any fights.
Wow, that's fascinating. Just curious, you said you like to have a beer with your opponents afterwards. I think that's always been the trend. Did you have one with Anzai afterwards there in Singapore?
No, I actually didn't. We went and saw him in the change rooms, but we didn't see him back at the hotel. So, but there were a few other fighters. There were Leon Edwards and all that were up there, and everyone was sort of just relaxing, and it was nice to just chill after the fight. And all my friends come over, so it was good to have a beer with them.
I imagine Donald Cerrone was having plenty of beers as well. Well, it's exciting times, Jake. Congratulations on the big win. Of course, the gym here in Melbourne, the XLRA Training Center. Just quickly, what can people expect from the gym? I know there's a fantastic program run by you and your dad over there. Anything exciting happening there for all the fans down here in Victoria?
Yeah, so like you said, we've got the Accelerated Training Center up in the northern suburbs. It's pumping at the moment. There's a lot of people in there. We've actually got another pro fighter fighting this weekend, Saeed Kazaz. He's fighting on the Hex Fight series.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
So I hope, and he's a beast. He's the toughest guy and even technically the best guy that I've trained with. And he's just one of those guys. If he brings what he does in training into the cage, he'd be AFC champ. He'd be Hex champ.
Wow.
Any promotion, he'd be the champ, and he could fight in the UFC tomorrow. As long as he does what he can do in training, and he's slowly getting there. So that's what's coming up for us.
And you train him, right? He trains under you.
Yeah, he trains under us, and he's actually. I wouldn't say we do train him, but he's one of my main training partners as well, especially for the wrestling. He's a monster at wrestling. Yeah. And we've got a bunch of amateur guys. We've got K1 Australian champs. We've got K1 Victorian champs. We've got a bunch of guys. So everyone's doing really well at the gym, and I think we're about. I think out of the last 20 fights, we've got 18 wins in the kickboxing circuit. So we're doing pretty good.
Very nice. I was wondering, obviously, if you're not fighting till say December, November, do you take a holiday in between? Do you go overseas? Do you spend time with family or friends or girlfriends or anything like that, or do you think you're just gonna be training all the way through?
I'll be back training next week. I mean, the knee's still a little bit sore.
Yeah.
So I'll just we normally take about a week, and then, but it's the good thing about it is that I don't have to go to every session. So if I want to take a day off and go do something with the girlfriend, I can do that. There's no big holidays planned. I mean, we've got the gym going. In the middle of the year is pretty busy. Mm-hmm. But we take little weekend trips. I'd like to go up to the snow this year and muck around up there.
Are you a skier or a snowboarder?
I'm a snowboarder.
Very nice. Yeah. That's the
right
answer.
So snowboarding during the winter and wakeboarding during the summer.
Ah, nice. Awesome. Are you a Buller guy, or do you go to the long trips, do Falls Creek and things like that?
Nah, I like Buller. Big fan of going to Buller.
Are you doing jumps? Are you doing tricks, or are you sort of just going down fast?
I can do the old nose grab and things like that, but
wow.
Nothing too fancy.
Wow,
it's become like a snowboarding interview here. All their fans are like, "What is Buller? What is this?"
You might see me in the next Winter Olympics.
Yeah, Wow. Jake's a man of many hats. He does everything. You got to get some GoPro action on the old Instagram. See you doing some tricks, but. Till then, man, we'll let you go, Jake. Congratulations on the big win. We're very happy for you. We can't wait to see you towards the end of the year. See who you get matched up with. See if any other fighters message you. Like, please stop calling me out. I'm very bothered by this. But in the meantime, guys, don't forget to follow him at Jake Matthews UFC on social media. And thank you so much for your time, Jake. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. It's always fun.
Hey, guys. It's Stipe Miocic, UFC heavyweight champion, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Alright guys, our following guest will be representing New Zealand in one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year in a week at UFC 226 there in Vegas, obviously on a 3-fight win streak coming off a big knockout over Jim Miller. He now takes on Gilbert Burns. Dan Hooker, welcome back to the program, man. It is a pleasure to have you on. Sporting a nice shiner. Is this a tribute to Rich Franklin by any chance?
It's a birthmark, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I forgive you because, it's pretty common that people think I've got a black eye. But it's permanent.
It's like a late in life birthmark, right? It wasn't there for most of your life, just popped up the last couple of weeks, all right?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Well, first things first, Dan, we saw you opened a new gym, so congratulations, the Combat Academy in Auckland, New Zealand. How's it going? And are you guys officially open yet?
Yeah, we've been up and running for the last 3 weeks. I've been in there running classes. Yeah, I've got a good base of guys now, and it's real exciting.
That's crazy. I know, obviously, you were at City Kickboxing for a while, and it takes a lot of planning and a lot of hard work to make something like this a success. When did you first start thinking about making, opening your own gym?
It's something I've had in the works for the last 6 months, I guess. Just finding the right place and location and building. That takes a fair amount of time. But no, I'm still my training is still exactly the same at City Kickboxing. Like at City Kickboxing, I'm a student. I work underneath Eugene. He's the head coach.
Yeah.
I'm just another body on the mats. But then at the Combat Academy, I'm the head coach. So I don't do my training there, but that's all of my coaching. So if you train at Combat Academy, I'm your head coach. I'm teaching classes and taking you through everything. So I've got a good balance.
Well, it looks like a very, very nice gym. It's state of the art, includes a yoga room, training mats, punching bags, full-size boxing ring, and an octagon. How hands-on were you when you were designing this thing? Was there a situation where you're like, no, this has to be in here? Did you have to be hands-on with trying to figure out where everything goes? And did you have to cut back on a couple of things because of spacing and stuff like that?
Well, I had people helping me, so it made it that much easier. They take the load off. They know I'm training full time, but I had a say in everything. The kind of bags. I picked out all my kind of bags, my kind of weight machines. I was very hands-on, especially with the building process. I hung all the bags, drilled the holes.
Really? Wow.
Laid the mats, built the ring, built the cage. That's all me.
So this is like a bit of a labor of love. You were like the Whittaker in those old kettle commercials. When he's like cutting the potato chips, like each potato is carving by hand. That was like you with this gym.
Yeah, pretty much. I had a hand in everything. So it's good. It's all come to fruition, and now it's all it's all there, and it's all it's everything you could ever want as a coach. I've got state-of-the-art equipment, and now I've just got a base group of guys, which I'm putting my time and effort into, developing their skills and their passion for the game. So it is my biggest passion in life is coaching and training and sharing knowledge.
You mentioned that you're running some of the classes. How difficult is that for you to do, considering you've got a massive fight coming up next week in Vegas? And are you still teaching classes at this point, or do you have some other teachers that you rely on in these parts of your sort of training camp so you can focus in on the fight the whole time?
So I've got other coaches at my gym, and that helps out. That helps a lot. But I'm still there, every day. Every
you
day
teaching today. You're teaching today.
Yeah. I'm in the gym. I'm coaching today.
Wow.
I make it work, man. I make it work. I'm one of those people that boredom drives me crazy. I really just hate doing nothing. I hate being bored. I hate having a day off. So that's why I train 7 days a week. That's why I teach 7 days a week. Staying busy. That's me.
This lifestyle seems to work out pretty perfect for you. You mentioned in City Kickboxing before. This is exciting times, man. You and your teammate, your frenemy, as you've described him on the show before, Israel Adesanya. You guys are going to war. You're going. You got a massive weekend coming up in Vegas. He's fighting the night before. You're fighting the day after, or the night after UFC 226. What is that like? I guess fighting so close together and heading into war together.
Yeah, it is like that. We're just mentally sharpening each other as much as physically. Not only the training, but just being in the right mindset at the right time and being at a similar level. We're just really pushing each other. And we've been pushing each other and motivating each other throughout this entire camp. So it's been great. We've had a few fight camps pretty close together, and that's worked out great in the past. This is a whole nother level. So we've got our whole team coming over. I think there's like 20 people from our team, from our crew, coming over with us. So it's like a bit of a Kiwi takeover of the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
Wow, the Strip's going to be wild. I'm just wondering, with Israel fighting the day before you, what are your plans? Are you going to be there to watch him fight? Are you going to be there to support him? Because I imagine you'll still be sort of recovering from your weight cut and still game planning and focusing on your fight for the next day.
Yeah, so I'm just going to play it by ear at this stage. I would like to be there, but I respect my fight, and I respect my opponent, Gilbert Burns, a bit too much to go out there and have a good night and enjoy myself and enjoy his fight. Watching a teammate fight is harder than me fighting myself. I'd be more comfortable going and fighting the night before and then fighting the night after, because I don't get like that adrenaline rush and adrenaline dump like you do when you watch a teammate. Like when you ever watch your teammate fight or watch one of your students fight, that's one of the most nerve-wracking things, because there's a lack of control. You don't have control over what they're doing. You're kind of just sitting in the crowd and watching, or sitting in the corner and watching. So yeah, it would be a bit hard for me, because just the pure adrenaline. I don't know how the fight is going to play out. If he went out, knocked him out, I would be all right. But if it's it's a back and forth war and it's a really draining fight, it might be a bit too much. So I'll play it by ear. If I feel good, I might make it down.
Yeah, and that'd be tough for you. You mentioned if it's a draining fight for Israel, that could be draining for you. So we feel you on that one, man. But your last couple of fights have obviously been in the States. How do you like fighting over there? And obviously, while it is fun being down here in Australia or fighting on an NZ card, do you kind of prefer to fight over there at night as opposed to the early mornings or the early afternoons?
Nah, shit. I'd way rather fight in Australia or New Zealand. If they just put on 3 shows a year in Australia and New Zealand, I will be a very happy man. I would not have to keep getting on these shitty long-ass plane rides, flying all the way to this country. Nah, it's get in, get out. Pillage, get the win, get back.
What does Dan Hooker do on the plane to keep himself entertained for that 14-hour plane ride?
I'm a pretty good sleeper. I think the Atlantic City one was 14 hours, and I slept 12 and a half hours.
Wow. That's
I have a special gift for sleeping on planes.
This is a real talent. This is like something that goes, in the training camp and the game planning.
Pops up when he comes to the octagon, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, blah, 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 can sleep on planes for 12 and a half hours. Let's talk about...
Bring it up. They should.
Let's talk about your next opponent, because for a while there, it looked like you were sort of aiming to fight Paul Felder. That didn't quite work out. Then we saw there's some beef going on Twitter between you and Alex Hernandez, and that fight didn't come together. Tell us what exactly happened, and what kind of options did you have for your next opponent before you settled on Gilbert?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of finished that fight even hungrier than when I left. I just wanted to get back in there as soon as I could. So I was just calling names. I just wanted to fight. Obviously, I wanted a ranked opponent. But at the end of the day, a fight is a fight, and I don't really give that much thought about it. Gilbert Burns, he seen that the fight with Hernandez fell through. So Gilbert Burns asked me if I would like to fight, and I said, mate, if you can get me a contract, I'll sign it today. And so he managed to get this fight put together.
Wow.
I think his manager's at Abel Abziz, or Abel, I don't know how to say his name.
Ali Abdelaziz?
He must have a bit of pull with the UFC, because they got this fight to happen. They put it together. So no hard feelings, but he brought it on himself.
So I guess you like this fight, because I know recently you were saying that you wanted to fight someone with a little number next to their name. There's no number next to his name, but I get the sense that you like this one regardless.
Yeah, I like any fight, to be honest. I will take anyone. I'm not a picky guy.
Well, when you look at this matchup, obviously, you know, Gilbert, he's a tough guy. He's been in the UFC for quite some time. He's a little bit even underrated. How do you see yourself matching up with him? And what do you feel like your advantages are when this matchup goes down in Vegas?
Yeah, like he's big for the weight class. He's been knocking guys out. He's multiple-time jiu-jitsu world champion. So he definitely has my respect and he has my attention. You know, I just got to use my natural ability. I feel like he's going to get tired before I get tired. I feel like this is what it's going to come down to. It's going to be a war. We're going to hit each other. We're going to beat each other up. He's going to get tired first. You can't tell me you did that big weight cut and then you're going to grind 3 rounds with me. You just can't. I've been there. I've done that. You don't have the same gas tank. Being that big, cutting all that weight, carrying that weight, it's too hard. It's too heavy. So I'm sure he will slow down, and when he slows down, he'll be in a lot of trouble.
That Dan Hooker knee of death will be ready and waiting. Conor McGregor's got the death touch, the left hand. Dan Hooker's got that knee of death. You've got some great finishes recently. You're on a good streak. You know, I believe this will make it 4 in a row. Do you feel like beating Gilbert Burns, that'll sort of put you to that next, I guess, step and get you those guys with the little numbers next to their name?
Yeah, I think an impressive victory here. I'd be pretty hard to deny a top 15 opponent, but man, if I get put in the same situation again, I would rather just keep fighting, stay active, rack up these wins, and I feel like the good things will come. I'm not one to sit around and wait. It's just not in my nature to kind of win and then, oh no, I don't like this. Like being picky. I feel if you're being picky, this guy's not a good matchup, that's not a good matchup, you don't deserve to be at the top. You have to prove that you deserve to be there. So I would rather do a Max Holloway and be every man in my way on the way to the belt instead of kind of Tyron Woodley sitting around waiting for guys to get injured, miss weight, pull out, sit out for you. Like this is not something that I respect as a fighter. So I would just like to get in there, get back to it as soon as possible.
The good thing is, as well, I feel like your division, the lightweight division, is possibly one of the most popular divisions in the UFC right now. It is stacked to the very top. There are 100 million great fights happening at the moment, and just some of these fights, just to mention them, are James Vick versus Paul Felder, Chiesa versus Pettis, Poirier versus Alvarez, Quinta versus Justin Gaethje. Are you going to be keeping a close eye on some of these fights? I know you like to do your analyst work, or you're a great analyst. Are you going to be keeping a close ie on these fights and possibly looking at fighting one of these guys, whether it be a winner or a loser in your next fight?
Yeah, definitely. All of those big names. I definitely feel like a 4-fight win streak, 4 finishes, puts you in contention for one of these big names. Like this is something I waited for. I would love to get one of these big names on the next show in either Australia or New Zealand. You know, the UFC hasn't announced anything for the tail end of this year. So for what's coming next, October, November, December. So I'm banking on them bringing a show back. I would love to get a top 10, top 15 lightweight back with home crowd support.
And I guess the good thing is, you know, if they do a card and, you know, usually it happens around November, you know, they'll need some big names at the top. Do you feel like maybe a main or a co-main event for Dan Hook? I know you don't really care who you face per se, but maybe a main or a co-main event spot, that'd be something that gets you extra excited?
Fighting is fighting to me. This next fight, I'm on Fight Pass. It could be main event, could be Fight Pass. My contract has the same number on it, regardless of where I line up in the rankings. And when you're a prize fighter, you fight professionally for money. That is your main objective, is to get paid for your talent and your skill inside of the ring. So main event to first fight of the night, my effort and my training is not going to change regardless. Like, I'm going to put the same amount of effort. I'm going to put on the same show. I'm going to try and take these guys out. Regardless if you put me on first or last, my fight is going to be exactly the same. So I would love that, especially at home, to a bit of recognition, a bit of face on the poster. But at the end of the day, a fight's a fight. Get me back in there.
But I was going to say, on the flip side of that, if you were to main or co-main event, it would be, like you mentioned, more recognition, more attention to you, which would in then sort of lead to sort of some of the bigger fights. Don't you think? Do you think that would be something that would help you? I know the fight's going to be the same regardless. You'll fight the same, but wouldn't you want that extra attention on you?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. That's not something that I chase. Like, I don't chase accolades. I don't chase attention. That's not really a focus of mine. Like, that's just something that comes with winning and comes with finishing these guys in impressive fashion. Like, you're going to get more attention. So my main focus is on winning fights, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how big your plans are. I want this, I want that, I want this. If you don't win fights and put these guys away, then it doesn't count with shit. You gotta go out there, put it on, and everything will come with it. You know, you do the hard part. Everything else is like they're second prizes. So I definitely am appreciative of that, but it's not something that I chase. I don't chase attention. I don't chase accolades. Yeah, I'm just doing me. I'm just a hungry fighter, looking to get paid.
Absolutely. And I was having a little bit of fun when we were thinking about having you on, and I want to ask you this question, just a fun one before we get your prediction for the big fight with Gilbert. If you could face anyone in a main event in New Zealand right now, let's just have a little bit of fun. Let's just put any opponent up in the air. Who would be your dream headlining fight to headline a card in New Zealand? If you had to pick one name, just having a bit of fun, who would you pick?
Dan Hooker headlines UFC New Zealand against Justin Gaethje.
Ooh, I think the good people in New Zealand would sell that thing out quicker than the pre-sale code would be able to be sent out via email. That would be unbelievable. That would be a fight that goes over in New Zealand for quite some time. Now, Dan, as we let you go, I mentioned it before the prediction. I mean, you have a lot of ways you can win this fight, but how do you think you win it here at UFC 226?
I feel like I've been putting in a lot of work on the ground, so I'm going Gogo Plata finish the first round.
Wow, against Gilbert Burns, despite his BJJ accolades.
Aren't you born with a BJJ World Championship if you're Brazilian?
That's a good point. That is a good point. I think it's ingrained in their DNA.
They got them coming out of their ears. They get them at birth.
Well, there you go. I love it. Some people, they don't like the predictions, but at least you're having a lot of fun with it, so we appreciate it. Guys, don't forget to follow the man on Instagram and Twitter at Dan the Hangman. And, of course, check out Dan's new gym, combat-academy.co.nz. Check it out. He did everything. So just quickly, as we let you go, are you in the Dan Hooker-mobile right now by any chance?
I am, in fact.
Any chance you give us you don't need to give us a tour, but can you show us the side? I love this. I know last time we spoke to you, I think you were at home, and it's almost like a dream of mine to get you on video and then see the Dan Hooker-mobile. Look at that. Look at that.
Wow.
Hangman, Hooker, right there on the side.
That mobile has nothing on that thing.
Nah.
I'm a hard man to find, I'll tell you that much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Dan. Really appreciate it, man. Always fun chatting with you. We'll let you go. And good luck. Good luck on the flight, man. We hope it's a 13-hour sleep this time. A new PB.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers for having me on.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Demetrius Johnson, the UFC flyweight champion of the world, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, this is very exciting. Our next guest is the head coach at AK and the man behind such champions as Khabib Nurmagomedov, and also the light heavyweight champion himself, and the man who will be taking on Stipe Miocic at UFC 226 in just a short week, Daniel Cormier. He is Coach Javier Mendez himself. Javier, welcome back to the program. How are you today, man?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure with you guys.
Yeah, it feels like we've been speaking to you for quite some time, Javier, and it's almost every time we speak to you, there's something exciting happening, and we're just a week away from the super fight, obviously, between Stipe and DC. So we have to ask you, how is the final prep looking for you leading into the big fight?
Man, preparation is going fantastic. DC is looking better than ever. It's funny, you know, he's 39 years old, going on 40, but he keeps improving all the damn time.
Wow. What would you say are the biggest improvements that you've noticed in him lately?
Well, yeah, you know, Dan has improved so much. He's improved his striking. You know, he's improved the smoothness of his punches, more power. You know, I mean, geez, man, that guy just keeps improving all the time. It's just amazing.
Obviously, this fight's happening at heavyweight. How much of a factor is not having to diet down to 205 come in as, I suppose, a bit of an advantage for Daniel? Does it make him perform better in training? Do you see him learning quicker because he doesn't have to worry about eating healthy and having to cut weight?
He's happier. so if anything, he's coming with a happier mood. You know, so he's on point. You know.
Yeah. How much do you want him to weigh for the fight?
You know, to be honest with you, I don't really care. All I care about is he's performing fantastic in sparring. As long as he keeps that up, that's all I care about. I don't. And this particular one, for me, the heavier the better. As long as he's in good cardio shape, which he is. So, yeah, that's all that matters.
We know, obviously, there's some killers in the gym, guys like Cain Velasquez. Who are his main sparring partners to get him ready for this fight?
You know, for this one here, he's got one is Bogoy Ivanov, Tony Johnson. He's got Thiago Beowulf. Shoot, I forgot Thiago's last name. But Thiago from Brazil is here helping him.
Yeah.
He's also got Valderin, who's in the Pro Fight League. He's here giving them work. Also, our new up-and-coming star that I believe is going to star, we just named him Juggernaut, James Lawson, who's an All-American. He's here. He's got a lot going on.
You mentioned, obviously, some of the great names that DC's training with, Javier, but because
number one guy, Cain Velasquez. Sorry,
Cain Velasquez.
So he is part of the camp.
Yeah, Cain is a big part of the camp. I don't know why I forgot him.
The most important guy.
Because Cain is also coaching with us too, so it's kind of I forgot.
That's right. Yeah, doing the Ultimate Fighter. He's doing a great job as well. Let me ask you this. You mentioned that Daniel is doing great in sparring. What would a sort of typical training sparring round look like for Daniel? Is he getting a new guy every round? And for a lot of these guys outside of Cain Velasquez, you know, what kind of success is he having against these guys? Is he just plowing through a lot of his training partners leading into this fight?
Pretty much everybody Daniel's ever sparred with the exception of a few, he always basically does what he wants to do. So, you know, pretty much almost every single person he's ever sparred, he pretty much has his way, how he wants it, when he wants it.
How many rounds would you say, for example, if you are doing sparring, how many fresh guys and how many rounds would he go through typically going into a fight like this?
Yeah, the most guys we usually put on him is 3, average 2, but the most is 3. But he averages 2 people.
Wow, and then those 2 people will just vary in between coming in round by round. How many rounds would he do back to back?
Well, Daniel, the most he will ever do is 5 because we're only going to go 5. We never put him past 5, because it's ridiculous to put somebody through something that they're never going to actually do in the fight. That the mind has a way of conserving itself. When you let's say you train 10 rounds, but your fight's only 5 rounds. You know, the fighter's going to hold back whether you realize it or not. So it's not a good idea to train, 10 rounds when you're going to only go 5 rounds. You should always train for what you're going to fight.
I was going to say, DC said that, a big part of his confidence is because he trains with Cain Velasquez. His sort of theory is that he knows he can beat Stipe because he trains with Cain Velasquez on a daily basis, obviously Cain being the former champion. I guess ultimately, when you look at the matchups, when you look at Stipe as a challenge, who do you think is tougher, Cain Velasquez in the gym or Stipe? And obviously, fighting is a different story to training, but do you think Cain Velasquez is a tougher challenge for DC in the gym compared to what Stipe will be in the fight itself?
I think Cain Velasquez is a monster for anybody in the gym, and the real life too. It's just unfortunately, things have happened to him that probably should never happen, but, to me, he's the king.
And just speaking of Cain, is he at 100% health? What kind of shape are we looking at here for the Cain that's training with DC leading into this fight?
Cain's been 100% since the beginning of the year. It's just a matter of something happening when the managers can get together and deal's structured. That I'm not privy to any of that, so I don't know anything about that. I just know that he's healthy. He's been healthy.
We'll circle back around to Kane a little bit later on, but I guess the big topic of discussion here with this fight for Daniel versus Stipe is the legacy. You know, Daniel Cormier's legacy has been somewhat, I guess, obviously he's a light heavyweight champion. He's had amazing success at light heavyweight and heavyweight, but there's a lot of debate regarding his legacy. Where do you stand on what this fight will do for him? And not only that, but him being in the, you know, GOAT discussions and where he sort of lands there if he can hold two belts at the same time.
Well, I think basically he's in the GOAT discussion only because the other people that should be there are disqualified, you know, by their doing or not their doing. They got disqualified. So to me, it's a no-brainer as why he would be considered in that category. You know, you disqualify yourself, you disqualify yourself. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. You're disqualified. So just from that point alone, 100% he's in the discussion, in my opinion.
It's interesting because the guy that we're talking about is, of course, Jon Jones, and him and Jon have been going back and forth on Twitter, and, you know, it just keeps emerging into the news. You know, Jon says something, DC says something, but ultimately, do you think that if, you know, DC decides to retire when he says he's going to retire and that third fight never happens, do you think that has any effect on his legacy at all? Do you think it matters?
Well, at this stage, you know, as far as his legacy, he just has to get by Stipe and then see what happens from there. But if he does, him and Jones do go at it again another third time, fantastic. If he doesn't, I don't think it does anything for him other than that's the fight he would want back. You know, other than that, I think that would be the only issue is what he would want. He would want to finish with Jones, I would think.
Do you
March, so we'll see, right?
There's not a lot of time. I was going to say, if he does hold two belts and he beats Stipe, you know, this is something that people thought Jon Jones would do for a long time. And now Daniel Cormier is the guy to do it. Do you think in some ways it kind of, I guess, helps people forget about those Jon Jones losses and in some ways, I guess, overtakes Jon Jones in that sense?
To some degree, but, you know, the people that have seen the fights have seen the fights, and they'll never forget that, you know. So that's always going to be in the back of people's mind. But like I said, you know, when you disqualify yourself, you can no longer be in the topic of a conversation. So, you know, we have to move with what we have.
The good thing about DC that I feel like a lot of people overlook is the fact that he works with kids. He's a great coach. He's a great role model for the sport. And he's a guy that comes up and steps up against the toughest names. He doesn't sort of try and renegotiate fights with easier matchups. This is a guy that's always taken the hardest fight. He's always sort of been there for the UFC. He's a great commentator. Do you feel like he's a little bit underrated by some of the fans sometimes? And when he retires, do you think that's when people will really realize the big sort of effect that he was having on the sport?
Actually, you know, before it was that way, but it's not that way anymore. The perception of who he is now, it's completely changed. It's a 180-degree turn. So he's already getting those accolades of people calling him great and what a great human being he is and teaching the kids and, you know, doing everything he does for the community. No, he's already getting that. So this is not going to be one of those after he finishes. He's already getting that now, you know, you know, what he has going on is great, you know, and it'll just continue once he's done. But he's getting great attention now and great love from all the fans and being acknowledged for all the great work he does with all the kids. So it's all good now.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the MMA world, they're not really ready for Daniel Cormier's retirement being so soon, you know, March next year. How do you feel about that date? Did you guys discuss it? Did he sort of come to you and ask, hey, Javier, what do you think about that? And you know, do you think March is sort of the right time for Daniel Cormier to retire? Or do you think he sort of, you know, could go longer if he wanted to?
Well, obviously, you know, he's 39. I said he keeps improving all the time, so he could go long on Stu. But you know, it's his decision, and we as his coaches have to be behind our guy, and that's what he wants, and that's what we'll do. You know, I'm not going to try to convince him otherwise. You know, he's been saying this for a while. It's not like new, you guys. He didn't just all of a sudden decide to wake up this morning and say, hey, you guys, guess what? I'm retiring. No, he's been saying this for a while. So we knew this day was coming, you know, and hopefully it'll be successful all the way through, and hopefully he can get, you know, this fight out of the way and two more before it's all said and done. But we'll see.
When was the first time you can remember him sort of saying that, hey, I'm going to be retiring at this time? Does it go back years and years ago?
Yeah, a few years back he was talking about it. Yeah, this is not new.
Well, let's talk about this matchup with Stipe as well, because, I mean, Stipe obviously has done great in the heavyweight division. You know, one of the most winningest UFC champions, putting on great performances, defeating some big names. And when DC and Stipe sort of go face to face, you do notice there is a bit of a size difference. Stipe is a bit bigger. How do you see this matchup kind of playing out? How do you see, and what do you see sort of DC's biggest, I suppose, advantages in this matchup? Because Stipe is a pretty decent wrestler himself, a pretty good wrestler, and I guess the big advantage for Stipe is his footwork when it comes to striking and moving around is like a light heavyweight to a middleweight.
Yeah, you know, I mean, what can you say about Stipe? He's great. You know, he's great everywhere. He's a great ambassador for the sport. You know, I mean, I have nothing but praise for him. He does everything right. You know, and he's not a trash talker. So this is not one of those fights that is related to this person hates this person. There's no hate here. It's just to see who's the best. Stipe is like you said, you know, he's got great hands too. Also, you know, he has good power backing up, going forward. You know, he's extremely well-rounded. He's got a good IQ. You know, he's got everything, you know, and where DC obviously edges him out a little bit is in the wrestling, you know, obviously a little higher wrestler. I think we have more striking opportunities with what we have, you know, but, you know, the power factor goes to him. You know, the height factor goes to him, but that's nothing new for DC. When he fought as a heavyweight, you know, for the 12 or 13 fights, I don't remember if it was 12 or 13, but, you know, he never lost a round in any of his heavyweight fights. The rounds that DC's ever lost were in the light heavyweight division, but never in the heavyweight. So I'm expecting, honestly speaking, I'm expecting that to happen again, where he just dominates the heavyweights.
And on that, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the Stipe fight, and it could play out a million different kind of ways. But let's say DC does win and he does become the heavyweight champion and the light heavyweight champion. Would you prefer to see him sort of finish his run out, possibly having his next fight in heavyweight? I know a lot of people are talking about this Brock Lesnar match. I suppose the big question is if it's between a Brock Lesnar fight or a Jon Jones fight, which one would you rather prefer to see?
Well, I kind of feel that DC would want Jon Jones. So if that's the case, I would want Jon Jones. And the ideal world for me would be for him to get Brock next after Stipe, which again, we got to get by Stipe first. So that's
sure.
It's not going to be no easy task as it is anyways. But then Brock, and then finish off with Jones, and then retire regardless of what happens, and retire with a career they can be proud of.
And I was going to say, you know, while we're talking about DC's retirement, obviously the other champion, aka, is Khabib Nurmagomedov. Any chance that Khabib becomes the new aka captain once DC retires?
I'm not sure. You know, I don't think so, only because, you know, Khabib's got a big responsibility. He's part AKA, but he's also Eagles, you know, MMA. So he's the president of Eagles, and he's my boy. I love him to death, and I'm always going to be with Khabib. And, you know, all his other guys are here now, Islam, and those guys are here today getting ready for their fights at the end of July, I guess, in Canada. But you know, no, Khabib, no. Team captain, no. I mean, team leader, absolutely, but the captain, no. Only because he's already, you know, he has that responsibility up there in Eagles MMA in Russia.
We've spoken to Luke Rockhold about Khabib a number of times, and he always brings up the fact that it's always a tough time against Khabib whenever they're sparring, when it comes to wrestling, jiu-jitsu. How does Khabib go against DC? What's that look like when it goes down in the gym?
Well, in the grappling, when I talk about a Khabib in the sparring session, I don't mean rounds, I mean a session. Daniel and Khabib never spar. That's too much of a weight difference. No, Khabib's sparring is always with somebody within his weight range, you know, maybe one weight above. But I don't ever let Khabib spar with like Luke Rockhold and them guys. No, if they do any work, it's in the other room where it's we call the red room, which is where it's light work, you know. No, Khabib's never sparred with people like Luke and you know, heavier than that. That'd be ridiculous on my part to put him in that situations like that. So no, he grapples with those guys, but it's not like hard sparring. No, Khabib's sparring rounds is with people the 170 and below.
What about the grappling though? Because I mean, Daniel Cormier, the Olympian, Khabib, the impeccable wrestler. What is the grappling like between those guys? How competitive is that?
Well, Khabib's game with everybody, but you know, let's face it. I mean, Daniel's a bigger guy, you know, and so. And Daniel's gonna work what he wants to work, but Khabib is a freaking beast, you guys. But you know, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, he beats Daniel. Oh, that's bullshit. that's ridiculous. You know, that ain't that. No, but Khabib's he's he's a formidable with anybody, regardless of weight. But again, we got to be realistic, right? I mean, when you got great athletes, then you got great athletes that weight does that make a difference when you got two great athletes, but one happens to be a lot bigger than the other.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned how he touched down today, and him and all the other guys are going to be starting training. It seems like he's going to be fighting Conor McGregor next, to all we're all hearing. Is that what you're expecting as well?
I'm not sure. From what I'm reading, John Kavanaugh said that he'll bet anything the fight happens this year.
Are you in on that bet, Javier?
No, because I don't know what New York's got planned for him.
Right.
We'll see. Come his final court hearing, they have more inside information on that. But hey, man, anything could happen. One thing I will say is if he does get licensed, it won't be in New York. It'll have to be Vegas.
Yeah.
So the fight will have to be in Vegas if it happens this year. I'm hoping it happens this year. The fans need to see it. We need to have something outside of the Stipe and DC fight. We need to have another blockbuster, and I think that'll be the blockbuster of all time if they can ever get that one together.
And ideally, obviously, they just touched down. How much time would you want with Khabib to prepare him for a fight like that? What would be the optimum sort of time for him to come back if you could sort of choose the month this year to see him come back, now that he's only just touched down and coming back to training at AKA?
Ideally, if he comes in September and the fight's in December, that would be ideal. But also, we can't go hard for the whole time.
Yeah,
we can only go hard for like 8 months. The rest is just learning, picking up new stuff.
Do you think?
Go ahead.
Do you think October would be realistic? Because some of the rumors were UFC 229. I think that's pretty early. I think October 6th in the US. Would that be something reasonable for you guys, or would you want a little bit more time?
I don't know, because I don't know what's going on. Like Islam and those guys, his other training partners are here getting ready for their fights. I don't know. I'm thinking October is, if he's training, which I'm pretty sure he is doable.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking it's probably more realistic November, December. That's what I'm thinking now, based on what's going on.
Yeah, and you mentioned that obviously the sport, UFC needs another blockbuster, and I couldn't agree with you more, and I think the fans agree as well. Do you think that, between how long this fight has been teased, even the Barclays Center incident, I feel like that's going to make the fight even bigger. Do you think this has the potential, Conor and Khabib, to make it even bigger than potentially the Nate Diaz rematch and make it the biggest fight in UFC history?
I think this one eclipses everything that they've ever done, personally, only because they got so much footage and their real dislike for each other. I mean, come on, you couldn't have scripted a better piece to have with all the video they have of everything, and the drama. The whole world, was in on what happened in that situation. So this fight is by far, in my opinion, the biggest fight that it's ever going to be made for MMA.
I can't wait, not only for this fight, yeah, and even like the press conferences and everything like that. It'd be crazy. You got to think, obviously, McGregor would bring his lightweight belt to the picture. Do you feel like Khabib sort of needs to beat McGregor in order to prove that he is, the definitive, the undisputed lightweight champion at the moment?
No, I don't think he needs to beat McGregor, but he personally needs to beat, I think he needs to beat a Tony Ferguson. He needs to beat like a GSP, type guy. And then, he needs to beat some top guys to really solidify his place in history. That I do think he needs to do. But does he need to fight Conor? It depends on Conor. If Conor's fighting, then yes, he does. But if Conor's not, then obviously, it doesn't matter. He's still going to make history by beating the other guys. But it would be nice to get Conor in there, only because that's the fight everybody wants to see.
And there's so many great names that you mentioned there. Ferguson is obviously one. GSP is obviously one. Conor McGregor is one. Out of all those guys, who do you think is the toughest matchup? Because all those guys are pretty talented. All those guys have had some big wins. Who do you think is the most dangerous fight?
The most dangerous fight for us is GSP.
Would it be his takedown defense and sort of the, I guess, because I guess stylistically, he would have a good chance of trying to sort of neutralize Khabib's game with the takedown defense.
It's not just that; it's his fight IQ. He's got an incredible fight IQ. He's a brilliant fighter, and he'll have the right game plan, and he'll exercise it. He'll implement his game plan, and it would be up to us to stop him from doing it. But he would be to me the most dangerous, because out of all of them, he's the most intelligent when it comes to how he's going to approach the fight, how he's going to get his body ready. You know, he'll do it to perfection. He's like a scientist in a way. His body to go. I love the guy. I think he's incredible, and I believe he's our toughest task for sure.
Wow, there you go.
Well, for now, I was going to say, Cass, for now, I mean, so many fun tests, so many exciting fights. As we wrap up, Coach, what's the prediction? How do you see DC winning this big super fight at UFC 226?
Well, normally, you know, for me, I always prepare my guys for a 5-round decision. So that's the way I'm going to go. But I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, he could stop Stipe. But, you know, in all fairness, too, Stipe's such a great fighter that, you know, it could happen to us too. So this is one of those fights that don't close your eyes. You know, it's a barn burner. This is a barn burner. Anything can happen in this fight. We're ready. There's no excuses. DC's the best he's ever been everywhere right now. So, you know, I'm expecting a great fight, and I'm expecting a great finish from him. And also Stipe, you know, come on, you know, his record speaks for itself. He's got the most title defenses in the heavyweight division. He's, you know, I mean, you know, who hates Stipe? I've never heard of anybody say anything bad about him. I'm definitely not about to say anything bad about somebody that's such a good role model for people, and he's a good example for what a heavyweight should be and is, you know. So I think everybody's in store for a great fight, you know.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's going to be amazing. It's, of course, a week away. International Fight Week, the super fight takes place. Javier will be watching. Of course, you'll be there. Don't forget to follow the man on Twitter at AKAJAV, aka Harv. And thank you so much for taking the time with us, Javier. We always appreciate it. It's always great chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. Sorry for the Skype thing. I'm new to all this stuff.
No worries, no worries. Thanks so much for the effort. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Right. Thanks, Javier. Take care. Best of luck.
All right, thank you.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, very exciting times. Our next guest is set to face Brad Tavares in his first main event at the UFC Tough 27 finale. Straight out of New Zealand, the man with one of the strongest Twitter games to date, and of course, a Deadpool tattoo on his torso, Israel Adesanya. Welcome back to the program. How are you, man?
I'm great, my man. How are you?
Very good, very good. And leading into this fight as well, I noticed you and Engage have gone into partnership over a pretty interesting looking T-shirt. I think it might be you and a balaclava, and I think it says "Stay woke, stay broke," or "Stay broke, stay woke." Explain this T-shirt to us. Explain this T-shirt to us. Looks cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of if I want to dive deep in it, there's a lot of similes and metaphors entwined in that. But I've always said that, like, stay broke, stay woke. It's all stay woke, stay broke is like a mentality, like never really being satisfied. Because a lot of people, when they get to a certain point or hit a set, like a certain goal, they kind of just get lackadaisical. They become complacent. So for me, I feel like I always want to hustle like I'm hungry. I always want to be on, you know, and I want to be woke, if you will. So yeah, I'm staying broke in a mental way, and then I stay woke. Also, like, if you stop, like, I like to flex once in a while, but, you know, people don't really bother you for much if you don't flex. No one's gonna try and rob you if you just look broke. So I'm still about that. I look broke all the time, so yeah, I stay woke that way.
This is humble. Yeah, of course. This is a good theory. I think that's what we've been doing for years and years now. The broke look, but it's also the broke life for us.
Just hashtag hobo life. Have a look at that. You'll see a lot of my stuff from like 5 years ago. Instagram, hashtag hobo life. You follow that trail, you see it. Like, I've just always been about that. Like, there was even one point in China, I remember I didn't shower for like 4 days just for
Really? Why?
Yeah. I don't know. I'll maybe just, when I got there, adjust into the culture shock, all that kind of stuff. Training as well, but I didn't shower for 4 days, and no one told me anything. So it must have still smelled good.
See, that's something you could bring into a fight. I feel like that's a sneaky advantage.
A lot of guys do that. A lot of guys, I've heard some people, some big names especially, even in jiu-jitsu, they don't wash the gis. But I think that's frowned upon. banned. But a lot of guys in the UFC, a few actually, no, I won't say a lot, but a few I've heard do that. I even heard like a guy like Roy Nelson doesn't wash his beard or something.
Wow.
Same thing. He won't. But
Does Sean Shelby come up to you and do a sniff test to make sure you showered enough for the fight? Does that happen?
I don't think that's in his job description.
I don't think he'd want to. Who else have you heard in the UFC that does that? Anyone in your division?
I bet you there's someone. I'll smell it, but it wouldn't really. Hey, smell wouldn't stop me. Like a period won't stop a sentence. So, period only stops nothing but a sentence. I fucked that up. I don't know, whoever, but it wouldn't really stop me either way.
That's hilarious.
Got to talk to you about UFC 225 just quickly. We saw you guys were at a viewing party, you and your boy Dan Hooker, who's also on the show today in Auckland. You had a cool custom T-shirt on. I think it was the Good Cunt tee on full display. What did you think of Robert Whittaker's performance against Yoel Romero, and who did you have winning that fight?
I gave it to Rob. I didn't really care. I just feel like he did the work to make weight, and he showed up on that night, overcame adversity, and beat Yoel Romero. For me, I didn't really pay attention too much to that fight either way, but yeah, I think Rob won that fight from what I saw, and I think he deserves to win that fight because he made the weight. So it's not that'd be twice now that Romero, didn't make weight and then gets to win, or supposed to win interim belts or whatever. So yeah, that's my take on it.
I find it fascinating that you say you didn't really care or you weren't really paying attention to that fight much, just purely because I know in the past you've said that, you expected to be you and Rob to fight for the title at some point. So I thought you'd be watching this and kind of studying a little bit of tape on Rob. Nothing like that?
Nah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I don't like to... I focus on what I'm doing. I watched the fight. Don't get me wrong. It was entertaining, but I didn't watch it to score. I just watched it to be like, wow, oh shit, oh. It was back and forth. It was an entertaining fight, but I'm not watching it to ooh, what's he... things subconsciously already, without me on the forefront, I already pick things away from that fight, but I don't like to think about it or focus on it because I focus on myself, and I've got, like I said, Brad in front of me, so I'll take care of him first, and then everything else will fall into place when the time's right.
And it's also interesting, the division. I don't know if you really pay much attention to sort of the landscape of it, but if you look at it and sort of the top part of it, it seems like, the UFC don't have too many sort of middleweight stars sort of waiting in the wings for contendership to possibly fight Rob. I mean, you got guys like Kevin Gastelum, you got a guy like Chris Weidman, Yoel Romero, we don't know what's going to happen to him in the future. Luke Rockhold, he's probably moved up. It looks like it's pretty, up for the taking for whoever comes along and sort of has a good sort of streak. Do you think about that, and do you think it's sort of right with opportunity for a guy like you if you do have a great performance against Brad Tavares and win a couple more fights?
For me, I don't think about things like that because I don't think about the belt like that. Everyone else works their way oh, I can't wait till I get the belt. I just know I'm thinking to the end past that. I'm thinking after fighting, or even just before the end, that kind of level. A lot of people have the belt as they go, but then they grab the belt and lose their next fight because that's where they want it to end up. They hit the climax, So for me, that's not the climax. That's why I don't really focus on shit like that. And yeah, I just live in the now. I focus on what's happening right now. So I try and live in the moment.
And that's a very good theory, and I guess motto for life. You mentioned Brad Tavares. There was a moment where obviously Dana White came out and he said that he told TMZ that Brad had a broken foot and he was out of that fight. What did you think when you saw that? Did you see it, and what was your reaction?
Yeah, I was like, I assumed it was facts, and then we got word from Mick that it wasn't facts. Just kind of ignore it. So I don't know. Maybe there was just some miscommunication there. Maybe something happened and then got leaked, and then oh shit, don't want to say anything. I don't care. For me, I didn't bat an eyelid. I didn't bother. I just knew my tickets were booked. I'm fighting, and that's it. Thiago was gonna step in. That would have been cool, but it doesn't bother me. I was ready to fight either way.
And looking at this sort of miscommunication about this allegedly broken foot, do you sort of take that into consideration going into this fight? Okay, this guy might have something going with his foot, or is it something where you just sort of block it out?
It doesn't bother me. If in the fight he gives me This is just in the fight. If someone gives me the look or something's hurt, I go for that anyway. But it's not like I'm predetermined to like, oh, I'm gonna look for that foot. I'm gonna have a look. I don't really care. You could be adrenaline's one hell of a drug. You know, you can like fight through a lot when you're hyped up on adrenaline. So, but if something else,
poker face.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be his rib. But I can always see past that as well. A lot of times, guys try to hide it, and you can see it. It's happening in sparring. It's happening, in fights. And I see, I'm like, ooh. And it's just like you notice these things. I've done it so long, I can kind of recognize when the body's ready to go. So subconsciously, they'll tell you because they want to stay in there. They're fighters, but the ones that are weak, they'll just let you know. And subconsciously, they'll tell you that they're ready to go.
I know regardless of the foot, you're always very confident heading into your fights, and you're very confident heading into this one. You've described Brad as a book you've read so many times before. Why is that? Is it that you've sort of seen guys with his style before, or have you fought past opponents, or are you just familiar with the way he fights in general?
Yeah, just what you said. I've seen guys like him many times and guys similar to him, so I just know what they're going to try and do. I even know how they're going to try and negate my my preemptive attacks. So yeah, this is not checkers, this is chess now. So yeah, I mean, who else? Who else is the best at this? So yeah, I can't wait. You guys will see come 6th July.
I know you don't really care about what the critics think, but are you surprised that some people sort of feel like this matchup may have come too soon, or the UFC are pushing you a little bit too quickly?
What you just said the first time, I don't care. Nothing phases me in that sense. I'm just like, okay, cool. Everyone has an opinion, and I mean, opinions don't mean shit. They ain't paying my bills. They're not doing anything for me. So, for me, I just, don't care.
Would you sort of bask in the fact of if you go out there and put on a dominant performance, you get to shut those critics up, or is that something not even a factor for you?
Nah, that always happens. I expect that all the time. So it's never about them, because eventually they're gonna like, oh, I knew you could do it, or they'll jump on this side at some point. So, and if they don't, I'm not losing any money either way. They're still gonna pay. I'm not talking money. I'm talking they're gonna pay attention. So.
Well, let's talk about the fact that this fight is in Las Vegas. We're talking to Dan Hooker about this. Apparently, you guys have a team of about 20 people going up to Las Vegas, and you guys will be taking over the Strip at some point, and sort of it's going to be a little bit of a New Zealand takeover. How does it feel to have your fight the day before Dan's and have the whole team sort of going over for it?
It's great for me because I feel me and Dan, we've been in this camp together, and we've kind of peaked at the same time. Just yawn, excuse me.
Are we boring you, Israel?
No, just finished training. I'm going to go to Max tonight, so it's my last one. This is my last hard week, so
yeah,
I'm ramping up to it now. But yeah, for me, it just feels good to have someone else go through what I've gone through for this camp or similar, and yeah, taking like a few of our friends and family over to come watch us do work. And I just feel like it's the beginning. Next time, you've seen what Shane did in Singapore. You'll see me and Dan next weekend, and after that, it's just going to be more and more. It's going to be another, like, resurrection of New Zealand combat sports.
What about the fact that it's your first main event? I mean, in your third fight, main eventing, I know you say that you've envisioned a lot of this stuff before, but is that a little bit extra special for you, getting that push?
Afterwards, it will be afterwards. But right now, it just doesn't bother me if I'm on the first fight, from the last fight of the night. At the end of the day, it's just going to be me and another guy. We're just going to be in there with the referee. You ready? You ready? Let's fight. When he asks me if I'm ready, damn sure I'll be ready.
You ever think about that scenario where a fighter goes, I'm not ready? How come that never happens? So, you're ready? You're ready? Nah, can you give me 2 more minutes? I really want to see someone put that question into practice. You mentioned how you sort of look for opponent. You kind of already know who your next opponent's going to be. You already sort of are looking at Uriah Hall. Is this the guy that's in your sights? And you sort of accused him of taking your clout. What do you mean by that? What's the real story there?
He keeps my name in his mouth so he can try and take my clout. It's like he's trying to just, if someone's popping like me, I'm hot in the streets right now, as they would say. So he's trying to say something about me to get associated with me, and it's like some fucking high school petty shit. I don't really care for me. I just feel like if he wins, great. If the Eraser wins, great. I'll fight either one of them. I think that'd be a good fight for my next fight. So I just put that out there, but I'm still focused on the task at hand because guess what? If I don't win this fight, then there is no next fight. So I'm taking care of this guy first, and then the other guys can come later. But they're not really in the forefront. It's just something I said, and you guys like to run with that kind of stuff, and it makes for a good story. So I just said after the fight, I want to see, when they fight, I want to see whoever is a winner in the octagon, and then just stare down with them, feel them. I want them to feel my energy, and I want to size them up. They can take me in and realize who they're fucking with.
Do you think that's a possibility that you will jump in the cage afterwards? I mean, you're not going to pull a Conor McGregor, i.e. jump the cage?
Nah, fuck no. I just step in there. Rashad and Rampage did it. Shout out to Rashad Evans. Yeah. And fuck. I just feel like it sets it up for the next fight. Like people start talking about it. You get to see the two contestants right next to each other, and then you size them up and then get the conversation started.
It's going to be interesting because you guys will obviously see each other in the hotels and stuff like that leading into the fight. So that should be interesting to see if Uriah says anything too. I'm curious as well. Let's just get back to your fight. We know you used to be a part of a dance crew and you have some sweet breakdancing moves. Why haven't we seen a breakdancing celebration yet after one of your fights?
Because I'm only 2 fights into the UFC.
Are you saving them for later? Is it just for special occasion fights?
However I feel at the time. Depends on how I feel. You can't you just have to go off the feeling. I might never do it. I might one day, who knows? But it's just, it all depends on the feeling of the moment.
I was going to say, I wanted to ask you something, and you mentioned China before. You obviously spent a considerable amount of time there. What would you say is your connection to China? And is it true that there was a story going around that at one point the Chinese people actually thought you were Chinese?
Yeah, it's not a story. It's like, I look at it as, put it this way, like the NBA, apparently LeBron might go to the Lakers or the Clippers or something. I'm not sure. I don't really follow basketball, even though I'm big and black. But, so for me, being part of the Chinese team was like being traded. I was in New Zealand. They brought me over to China to be a journeyman. And once they realized, like, shit, we can't really beat him, then let's put him on our team. So, and I lived there for a year. I spoke the language a little bit. And I just, for me, it was just like being signed to a different team. And I was part of the Chinese team taking on the rest of the world. So that was cool. Yeah, I appreciated that. I made a lot of money doing that. And yeah, it was a good time. We had some good times in China.
Wow. What does one do in China to have a good time? Just because me and Casper have never been. What are you talking about? Nightlife? Or I know there's a lot of culture there.
Yeah. You mean you can go sightsee. There's many things. Day and night. Yeah, there's many things to do in China. There's a lot of people there. So yeah, you just have to, it's about who you know. Yeah.
Just quickly before we let you go, Israel, we saw that you went and saw Deadpool 2. Mentioned at the start you've got a Deadpool tattoo on your torso. Is it true that you actually went to the cinemas in a onesie? And I'm wondering what the reactions were from when people see Israel Adesanya walking to the cinema in a onesie.
Check my Instagram. Yeah, I was just there. It was what happened because I think I had to go pee halfway through the movie, and at that time I realized, well, I'm not leaving this. So I stayed all the way to the end, and I ran to the bathroom, and I tried to pee. And the zipper only got up to, like, say, your belly button. So I realized the plight of a female having to wear a jumpsuit or one. So, yeah, trying to pee out of that was a bit of a risky undertaking, but I got it done.
And did you like the second movie?
It was awesome. I loved it. I don't really care what anyone says. Deadpool's gonna Deadpool, and yeah, it was a good movie.
I was gonna say, did you like in Thor Ragnarok where there was the Kiwi humor, and New Zealand's getting a big shout out in Hollywood these days?
Yeah, 100%. That was funny because I could get it, even the accent, the way he was talking. Can't remember the name of the guy, but I think the director was a Kiwi as well, so that's why it was really prevalent in that movie. It was funny. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, look, let's look towards the fight because it's a big one over in Vegas. What is the, I suppose, official prediction for this fight with Brad next week? What are you feeling here?
It's not going 5 rounds. That's just facts. It's not going 5 rounds. 5 rounds is a long time, you know. It's a fight. And with Brad, he's not like my last guy. I don't think he's going to be able to take what I can dish. So it's not going to go 5 rounds.
Well, there you go, guys. A quick one from Israel Adesanya this coming week. It's going to be the Tough 27 finale, 6th of July. It's going to be 7th here in Australia and, of course, in New Zealand, taking on Brad Tavares. Follow the man on Twitter and Instagram, as we said. One of the strongest Instagram and Twitter games around, @StyleBender. And as always, man, we thank you so much for your time, Israel. Really appreciate it, and good luck in a week.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Wow.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a UFC Hall of Famer, former UFC light heavyweight champion, an MMA icon, and an MMA legend. He joins us here on Submission Radio with the hopes that he's possibly coming out of retirement, possibly for one more fight. He is, of course, the Huntington Beach bad boy, Tito Ortiz, and he joins us here on Submission Radio. Tito, welcome to the program.
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Always
really coming out of retirement. You know, I'm going to stay retired. I just want to come out and kick Chuck Liddell's ass and give me the opportunity to put my hands on his face.
So it's official. You are officially coming out of retirement.
Yeah. The fight's not official, but I started been working now for about almost a month and a half. My body feels great. I bounced back faster than I expected, which is great. But I feel good, man. I'm anxious. I'm just waiting on Chuck Liddell's side to kind of sign the contract, get this done. So it's just a matter of time.
So you mentioned that you're waiting on his side. Are you saying from your perspective, everything's been signed and sort of dotted on the line?
Yeah, so far so good. You know, I think Chuck's kind of holding out, trying to make more money out of it, which is just doesn't make sense because this deal is just pretty much cut and dried contract, you know, where both partners, De La Hoya wants his 40% and me and Chuck Liddell get split 30%. So that's on complete revenue of the whole fight in general. And this is the whole thing that I've been waiting for such a long time in mixed martial arts to, you know, really make a difference. And we're going to do that with De La Hoya and Goldenboy promotion.
Wow. So how did it come that De La Hoya is officially the one who's going to be promoting the fight? Because I know some people were thinking, you know, maybe this fight will end up in Bellator. And some people were saying, you know, why doesn't the UFC host this fight? Was there any point where you reached out to Dana and just said, hey, listen, we're thinking about doing this fight. Are you interested at all?
You know, I think Dana just didn't really want it in the UFC because he's close friends with Chuck. And Chuck's been stopped his last 4 fights. And I think he was just looking for the health of Chuck Liddell. But, you know, he's taking his time off, and he thinks he can come back and bounce back, and he wanted to fight me. I mean, people got to understand, he's the one who called me out. I was enjoying retirement, and I was sitting back. But when he called me out, I sat there and thought about it. Why wouldn't I want an opportunity to redeem myself? And to get a win against Chuck Liddell would be great. So I have this opportunity. I mentioned something on De La Hoya's podcast, and all their guys kind of were talking to each other, and all of a sudden they're excited in the room, and they were like, wow. When the interview was over, they're like, are you serious about this? I was like, 100%, let's get this done, let's do it. And all of a sudden, I was in a meeting with De La Hoya, and De La Hoya sat down with me and all of his management, and they said, you know, we really want to do this. We really think that the fans deserve this. You know, this is the 25th year of UFC anniversary. UFC didn't want to do it, and made sense to De La Hoya. He said, let's do this. And when he talked about promotion of us being part of the promotion with me and Chuck, it's just a blessing in disguise. You know, we're able to make a part of the revenue, or actually a big percentage of the revenue with pay-per-view, the gate, merchandising, sponsorship, something that no MMA event has ever done before. And we're going to make it happen.
Because it's interesting. You're mentioning a deal that typically a boxer would get to enjoy, and it's almost like you guys are making history by doing this with MMA. Just a few quick questions on De La Hoya to begin with. What's it like working with him? I mean, a lot of people don't really know what it's like to work with a guy like Oscar De La Hoya, and some people are criticizing him, saying he doesn't really understand MMA or the MMA game. So what's kind of your response to that? Does he have a wide knowledge of mixed martial arts?
Well, you know, I think that's when I fall into play. You know, I've been doing this for over 21 years. I have a really vast, career in UFC and Bellator and MMA in general. I put on smaller events myself, so now I have an opportunity to do a big event. I think that's what I come in as a partner. Boxing and MMA, yes, there's a difference, but in general, it's a promotion. And that's what truly needs to be done, is doing the right promotion. Finding other fighters, being a matchmaker, making sure we have the right head-to-head matches. But I think, in general, the big fight that's sold on this is me versus Chuck Liddell 3. And I think the fans are going to tune into it.
Do you think there was any other fight that could have brought you out of retirement, or this was the only one? And also, are you looking at doing this as a once-off and then going back into retirement, or do you think this might spur your motivation to keep fighting on?
Well, what really brought my attention to this is just getting an opportunity to get redemption against Chuck. He's always talking smack about me. Seems like he can't stop talking about me. So now he has an opportunity to fight me, and it's taken forever for him to finally sign the contract. But this being a one-off, I don't know. I spoke with De La Hoya about that, and he's like, Tito, I would like to fight, see you fight maybe once, twice, 3 times. But I'm going to have to listen to my body. I watched Randy Couture come back after the age of 43 and get the UFC and win a heavyweight world title at the age of 43. And that goes back to all the naysayers out there who say that, Tito's 43 years old and Chuck Liddell is 48 and they shouldn't be fighting. Well, look at the guys who've won world titles at an older age, who's won fights at an older age, who's been dominant against higher level fighters at an older age. Mark Hunt is another guy. Of course, Randy Couture. I'll be on that age bracket. It's just one of those things that if your body's able to do it, your mind's able to do it, and you're able to get in the gym and do these things, why not? Why look back and go, damn, I wish I would have done that. Now I can look back and go, I gave it my all, and I gave it as much as I possibly could, and I never quit, and that's something I'll never do.
So speaking of the event, people are just trying to figure out how it would sort of look. So with you and Chuck at the top of the card, would this be primarily an MMA event, or would it be a hybrid of boxing and MMA?
It would be strictly an MMA event. This would be the beginning of Goldenboy MMA.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And when you guys are looking at pay-per-view and sort of pay-per-view numbers that you sort of forecast or expect, how much, because it's a big fight, it's something that a lot of people have been looking to see for quite some time. Also, Chuck Liddell hasn't fought in a long time, which also adds to it. Obviously, you have a huge fan base. How many pay-per-view buys would you sort of expect for a big fight like that?
That was something that kind of the recipe that I've been thinking about. What would be the exact number that we could think about? I talked to some of the other guys like Sean Shelby, some of the other promoters, and they said, you guys have a possibility of doing some really great numbers because people don't know what to expect. I know what to expect of myself. When I fought Chael Sonnen, who is still in the heavyweight tournament in Bellator, I dominated him after 3 minutes. My body's reacting fast, and I know it's going to be a fast action fight. Chuck is known to knock people out, so people want to watch this fight. So what's the magic number? Is it over 500,000? Are we able to meet that million number that we did the last time me and Chuck fought? We did I think it was over 1.4 million pay-per-view buys. Wow. If we can fall right in the middle of that, I would be happy. Chuck, of course, would be happy. Of course, De La Hoya would be like, we have started a new game. And other fighters would be like, how do I get a part of that? How do I get a piece of that? How do I get into that promotion? And talking to me would be the first step.
So I guess regardless of whether you were to fight on after this fight, you would stay on with Goldenboy Promotions as kind of like an ambassador and I guess somebody helping out behind the scenes and dealing with the fighters and matchmaking, things like that. Is that correct?
Yes. This is something I told De La Hoya, but De La Hoya has brought it to my attention of saying, this is a one-off for me. I want to see how good you guys can do pay-per-view-wise, selling tickets-wise, doing the sponsorships. He wants to see that it's able to make money, and we're able to show that. Then he wants to continue on to the future of business.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating. And from your perspective, obviously De La Hoya MMA, you're fighting, but also you mentioned your knowledge as well. Will this be a situation where you're going to have a position with De La Hoya sort of going forward in other cards, helping him promote it and sort of giving him the lay of the land when it comes to MMA?
I think laying the landscape of mixed martial arts that I've done over my career, I think I could give him the ideas to do it the right way. He understands promotion. He understands putting big fights. Of course, they have the big fight coming up in September with Triple G and Canelo. So it's just we're gonna follow off the tails of that and continue on with the promotion. But like De La Hoya said, he wants to do this as a one-off. Let's see what happens, and after the fight's over, let's go back to the drawing board and see if we can make it better than the last time.
And just looking at the fight itself, I mean, you mentioned your motivation, you want to get some redemption, you want to beat Chuck Liddell, but just looking at it from his perspective, given that he won the first 2 fights, he's been retired for such a long time, what do you think the incentive is for him? And you mentioned how he's always been speaking about you. Why do you think he wants to fight you so badly again?
Well, you know, I think he's broke. I think he needs money. He needs to pay his bills, which is understandable. You know, he doesn't have that big income coming in from UFC by being an ambassador with UFC. And he's out on his own. You know, he's looking for a way to make a big dollar at a quick amount of time. And this is the biggest fight that he can make happen. I want it. He wants it. De La Hoya wants to promote it. The fans want to see it. There's fans out there who talk smack to saying, oh, we won't watch that fight. But I guarantee you they'll be tuning in. They'll be buying the pay-per-view. They'll be watching. So it's just a matter of time that Chuck Liddell finally signs the contract and puts his mouth where his mind is.
And obviously, it's a great time to do the fight. And it seems like there's a little bit of a timeline here. So ideally, if Chuck comes back and he signs this contract, when would you like for this fight to take place? Have you guys talked about dates and possible locations for it?
A few locations, you know, of course, Los Angeles is a huge one they want to do. Just because of being at the Staples Center would be great.
That'd be
for
huge, yeah.
Both our fans, it would just, I think that would be a home run. But it's just a matter of time of finding a date closely, maybe in November or the end of October. It's just I want to make sure that I don't want to step on any toes with UFC and go head to head with any of their big cards. You know, I think it's really important to trying to work with other companies and show that we're willing to work with other companies by doing this.
I know that in the last few years, your relationship with the UFC seems like it's pretty good. We obviously saw you UFC 214 in Anaheim. Obviously, the fans very receptive. You know that you've been featured in vignettes and things like that in the UFC. When something like this happens, do you call Dana White? Do you speak to him at all? Do you get, I guess, his blessing? Do you talk anything over, or you don't really sort of do that?
No, I wish I was on that level of doing that with them. You know, I kind of keep business away from our personal stuff because we always clash so much prior.
Yeah.
Now if he doesn't like something, he would shoot me a text and you say, no, don't do it, and I won't do it. I think in time cures all wounds, and it's just a matter of time that it has been. They treat me and respect me so far. They've treated me really well. You know, I'm getting ready for the July 4th weekend, the UFC fight weekend in Vegas. I'll be going to that. I'll be doing a signing for them. So, you know, we're starting to mend our wounds.
You mentioned how, this is a huge fight, but we know there's a history between you and Chuck, and, he can't sort of keep your name out of his mouth. But when you retired, did it bother you at all, the fact that you guys never got to do the trilogy, the third fight between each other? And are you sort of relieved that you're getting an opportunity possibly to fight him and sort of get that out of your mind if it has kind of bothered you from time to time?
Always bothered me a whole bunch. People got to understand this. They don't know the whole story behind that. We were both doing The Ultimate Fighter. We were both coaches. I was training at that time with the guys who were on my team, and I ended up getting hit by a punch. And all of a sudden, I went back to go take a nap, little break. I go to get up, and I couldn't stand up. I had, C6, C7 that had a disc that was completely ruptured. I went to Dana, and I told him about it. He's like, well, we need to have the doctors look at it. You need to go to L.A. So I went to L.A. I had my doctor who's done all my surgeries with my lower back and my neck in Las Vegas. And he said, Tito, here's your choices. Either you can fight and have a chance of going paralyzed, or you can hold out and wait for the future. And I was like, okay. And that took me about a half a second to really make that decision. And I told Dana, my doctor says that this wouldn't be great for my future. And he goes, oh, okay. I kind of figured that. Then all of a sudden you had Chuck Liddell saying, oh, I told you he was a pussy. I told you afraid he didn't want to fight me. And it was never that. They sold something on television that was, what people wanted to see. Not what the truth was. And the truth was that I was injured. I had to have neck surgery. It wasn't like that I had a couple stitches in my face or I had a concussion or, I hurt my elbow. I had to have neck surgery. They had to fuse my neck. And I ended up coming back and I fought. And I fought many times after that. But it was just one of those things that I think there was a picture that was painted the wrong way. It wasn't the truth. Now I have an opportunity for redemption against Chuck Liddell on my terms. Chuck Liddell says we're not friends. You're correct, buddy. We're not friends. I'm going to kick your ass in the cage, plain and simple. You know, it's just one of those things that you lose respect for a person after he lies so much over and over and over. You know, this is one thing that I've learned through my trash talk through my career is never lie, never talk about a person's country, I never talk about a person's family. And I've kept those things as clear as possible through my whole career. You know, Chuck Liddell is nothing but lied, and he's correct. We're not friends. Let's fight on our terms, not on the UFC terms, not on your terms with Dana, where Dana and the UFC were against me. Let's do it where everything's on my side now. Let's do it when everything's in my court and I'm able to push the buttons, not him or Dana. And it's nothing against Dana. I understand Chuck was his boy back in the day, and Chuck never said anything against the UFC. He always just fought for pennies. You know, at the end of the time where we did fight our last time, we did fight for millions. But prior to that, our first fight, we only fought for $150,000, where they made over $40 million for the pay-per-view. What am I doing wrong that boxers are doing? You know, you see guys like Floyd Mayweather and McGregor, who McGregor made over $100 million for his boxing match. All of a sudden, they're cutting in as partners, which is great. That's the way it should be. We're the ones getting in the cage and fighting and putting our lives on the line. And De La Hoya said exactly the same thing. You guys are the fighters. You are the guys that should be getting the most of this revenue. And I want to do this and make this happen for you guys. And so that's when I was like, you know what? I'm on board. Let's do this. Let's make sure my body reacts the right way, and it has over the last 6 weeks, and I'm happy. Chuck Liddell's done the same thing too. He's looking good. You know, some of the pictures I've seen of him, some of the times that he's hit pads over the last 4 or 5 weeks, you know, it looks like he's in shape. It looks like he's ready to fight. So let's get this fight signed. Let's get this done, so we don't lose time on promotion. You know, if it happens in October, that would be great. If it happens in November, that'd be great. But let's do a good 4-month tour of promotion to get the hype around this fight, because I have an opportunity for redemption. I think all my fans would love to see my hand raised over Chuck Liddell.
And that's an interesting thing that you mentioned, the fact that Chuck sort of went along, you know, during the high days in the UFC, he sort of didn't really question Dana much and sort of stuck with the deals that he got given, while you got a little bit of flack for, you know, sort of speaking up about fighters not being paid properly and different things like that. Do you think ultimately, looking at where Chuck is now financially and where you are, you know, making investments and sort of making sure you're getting fair deals and other fighters getting fair deals, do you think that sort of paints a bit of a story of possibly he should have been a little bit more vocal with the UFC during those kind of periods?
I always thought he would. I always told him, I said, what are we going to do when we're 40 years old, man? I don't want to continue to fight. All of a sudden we look at time, and time tells everything. You know, we're going to be fighting against each other, but we're going to be fighting for the right reasons that I've been trying to fight for in the very beginning of my career. And it's just like funny, because everything always comes full circle in my life, and this is completely coming in full circle.
I guess it's pretty fascinating looking at the contrast between the two of you, because you're in a position in your life where, you know, you're comfortable, you're settled, you don't have to fight. But this is, I guess, something that this is a fun opportunity for you. You get a chance at redemption. Whereas it seems like Chuck's sort of looking for, you know, a second win, a bit of a resurgence in his career. He's talking about how he wants to fight you. He wants to have a bunch of fights, and then he wants to go and fight Jon Jones. When you hear him say things like that, what do you make of it? And do you think that's realistic?
You know, I guess he got to believe in himself, you know, and he always has through his career. He had to believe in himself. So he has to believe in himself now, which I hope he does. You know, that'll make it exciting. He'll want to train. He'll want to put the best Chuck Liddell forward. So when we do step in the cage and face each other, you're going to get the best fighters you're going to see. If he wants to continue on fighting, what's going to happen if I touch him on the chin and I knock him out in the first round? What's going to happen to his career? I know all my fans will be jumping out of their seats, screaming in joy. I'll be doing the same thing because I got my opportunity. This is just an opportunity for me for redemption. I've always been a person through my whole life that when someone told me I couldn't do something, I said, wrong, I'm going to do it. And, you know, I missed once, I missed twice. Maybe the third time is my charm.
I was going to say, do you think there is a scenario where he could at any point be competitive with Jon Jones, especially, you know, if it is in not 2018, but maybe 2019? And do you think if the fight goes your way when you guys do fight, and like you mentioned, there's a possibility that you knock him out, that could sort of derail those plans for him pretty quickly?
Well, I'm really not worried about what his plans are. I know exactly what my plans are going to be. You know, he's going to have to defend the takedown. He's going to have to defend the ground and pound, or he's going to have to defend being on his feet. It's just one of those things. I'm a totally different fighter than I was when I fought him. All in general. I mean, as a fighter of my respective abilities, at home, my relationships, with my kids, my girlfriend Amber. I mean, everything is just so positive. Everything is such in a great environment that my body just reacting the right way. My mind wants to do the training. My mind wants to put the hard work in. And I think fans really want to understand that, because this is my opportunity for redemption. My whole life, I've just been told I couldn't do something. And I've always proved them wrong. I became world champion at the age of 23. I defended my world title 5 consecutive times. I became a millionaire at age of 24. I bought my first home at the age of 24. I bought my house on the water in 09. I've always wanted to do that. I want to have my own boat behind my house, which I have that. These are things that I've wanted through my life, and I set these goals, and I've worked so hard to make them happen. I just want to show anybody who's ever followed my career to be inspired by the things I've done. And this is another one that doesn't take any difference. I want to show them that when someone can beat you once, can beat you twice, you're able to bounce back on the third time and beat them. And that's what I'm going to show when I beat Chuck Liddell, when we compete against each other.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tito, your life is like a movie, and it keeps getting more and more interesting as we wrap up, because there's still a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll have to get you back on when you guys are doing this tour, this world tour. But as we wrap up, what's the prediction? At this early stage, when you're looking at this fight and you see the way that you win it, is there a scenario in your head that just kind of sticks out every time you think about it?
I really have dreamt about it. I've thought about it. I've gone over my head over and over and over and over again. Is just put the pressure on him, and catch him within the second round with my hand. It's either going to be a left hook or a right hand, one or the other.
Wow, there it is. A very, very specific prediction. Guys, in the meantime, make sure to check out Tito's new watch. He's got a partnership with Rockwell Watches. It's the Tito Ortiz Hall of Famer collection. These watches, Tito, look really, really cool, guys. Make sure to check that out. Also, visit punishmentathletics.com. There's a lot of new gear for you guys to check out. It's warm down here. It's cold down here in Australia, so grab your hoodies, get your hats, get your beanies.
Right now, right?
Yeah, it is freezing, man. So I think it's time to get warm, and it's a good way to get warm by wearing some Punishment Athletic clothing. That's punishmentathletics.com. And, of course, follow Tito on Twitter at Tito Ortiz and Instagram, Tito Ortiz 9099. Tito, again, thank you so much for coming to the program. We're excited to see what happens. Thank you for your time, and excited to see when this fight goes down.
Awesome. Me too, man. I want to appreciate guys' support. Of course, anybody who watches this, it's going to happen. This fight is going to happen. It's a matter of time. Chuck Liddell, come on, buddy. Stop asking for pennies, man. You're stepping over dollars looking for pennies. Let's sign this fight. Let's get it done. So we give all the fans 25 years of mixed martial arts, 25 years of UFC. Let's give them the best fight forward, and that's Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell 3.
Hey, this is Uriah Hall, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my two favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys, joining us here on Submission Radio is the Deputy Managing Editor at SB Nation's MMA Fighting and the Treasurer at the MMA JA, the man that we love having on the program. He's been on many times before, and it feels like it's been too long, so we have him back on the show here today. Marc Raimondi, welcome back to Submission Radio, and for the first time on video. I mean, it's almost too seductive for us to interview. Thanks for joining us.
Well, hopefully you guys are okay down there in Oz. Not getting too excited to be seeing my ugly mug on your screen.
We're very excited, Mark. We can't contain ourselves. It'll all come out in the video. Don't you worry. But we're excited about a lot of things. Obviously,
out if you know what I mean.
Look at that! Look at that!
Keep each 13, gentlemen.
Well, it's Australia, so we can keep it R18. We can keep it any rating you want, Mark. But I was gonna say there's other stuff to get excited about as well. Obviously, a lot of stuff happening in the MMA world. But before we talk about that, obviously MMA fighting wise, Luke Thomas, he did his first episode of the MMA Hour. There's a fancy new intro. I mean, what's not to get excited about? What did you think of the episode? And what was it like for you watching it?
It was great. I was so happy for Luke. This is a guy who has been with SB Nation since I think 2007. Yeah. So he's predated all of us at SB Nation. No one deserves it more than him getting that role. He's paid his dues. He's been around for a long time. One of the smartest guys in the sport on the media side. One of the most charismatic guys. Luke is gonna be Luke. You know, he's a great personality. He's got that Luke demeanor. I can't even describe it.
Yeah.
And I thought he knocked it out of the park with the first show. Honestly, guys. I mean, I thought it was great. I thought that look, it does not get harder than following Ariel Helwani.
Yeah.
I mean, the best in the business. I mean, Ariel is like the most versatile, multi-dimensional, talented guy. Does everything well. I mean, just like a phenomenon of a person. And obviously, he's doing his thing now at ESPN, and then he's doing amazing there. So already, I mean, off the bat. So it's hard to follow Ariel, but Luke, I thought he crushed it. I really did. I think the MMA Hour is going to be in amazing hands with Luke, and also Danny Segura, his Luke's new producer. I'm super excited for the show. I'm really pumped. I think they're really gonna kill it.
Yeah, and I think Luke made a really good point. Whereas before people had the MMA Hour, now people have the MMA Hour and Ariel's show. So it's like another fantastic program for everybody to enjoy. It's almost like the MMA gods have spoken. Let me ask you something, Mark. When you hear when Ariel first tells you that he's making this big move, and I'm guessing this happened quite some time ago, what are your thoughts? And what is sort of were you involved in the process of sort of finding the next person to take over the program? And how hard was that process? Because we imagine, you know, there'd be a certain period of time and you guys probably had some deadlines to try and get the new version of the show up. So it must have been pretty hectic.
Yeah, well, I mean, first thing I thought was I'm very happy for Ariel, because Ariel has, I mean, he's not just the best in the business when it comes to, you know, MMA journalism. He's a good friend, you know, to all of us, and he's been a great teammate. There's no better teammate than Ariel. I mean, he helped every single person on our staff on a daily basis, and it was just incredible having him around, and I feel like we all learned a lot from him. So he kind of left us in good hands in that way. So the first thing that I thought when he said that was like, congratulations. I mean, ESPN is a big deal, and I know that he in the future would love to do other sports in addition to MMA. Probably couldn't do that at MMAfighting.com. So I mean, for a lot of reasons, I was happy for him. On a personal level, on a professional level, because he's my friend, he's my good friend. Yeah. And then, but also, you know, it's shocking to lose someone of that stature from a website that, in many ways, was built around Ariel Helwani. Let's not mince words. I mean, the MMA Hour was the flagship show. It was his show. He started it, you know, many years ago, and he's been with MMA fighting in some respect. It was not called that at the time, but I mean, with this kind of the same core for 9 years. I mean, that's a long time. Working with Esther and Casey and Brian Tucker, our editor, for almost a decade. So it's a huge loss. I mean, again, Ariel is Ariel. There's no. I mean, look, I think there's a lot of talented people in the sport, on the journalism side, but Ariel is Ariel. You know, he's a force of nature. He's like a planet like unto himself. So it's hard to lose someone like that. And then yeah, the process was I mean, it was not easy, you know, to find someone who wanted to do it. I think Luke was going to be the natural choice. I mean, he was always the guy that made the most sense. He was on the team. Again, he's been with SB Nation forever. You know, he has his shows on our website already before that. So he was always kind of like the natural successor. And to me, I don't think it could be any better than what, you know, where we have it right now. And like you said, and what Luke said on Monday is now for MMA fans, it couldn't be better. It's the best of both worlds. I mean, if you're a fan, it was like when WWF and WCW existed.
Yeah.
You got the best possible products.
Yeah. Someone put that up, the Monday Night Wars.
Shows, right? I mean, yeah. When pro wrestling was at its best, when both those entities were, you know, kind of going up against each other. And I don't feel like we're going up against Ariel. I mean, I guess in some ways we are, even though we're all friends. But that brought out the best in both of those companies back then, and I think it'll bring out the best in both sides this time as well. It's the best possible thing for fans. You can watch both. There's no such thing as you got to pick one or two. You can watch both shows. I mean, it's all on demand.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I know obviously Ariel's video content was a big thing on MMA fighting, especially his fight week interviews and pre-fight, preview shows and things like that. But you guys have so many really talented people working there at MMA fighting. Obviously, Sean Al-Shadi and his long form stuff. I've always said to you, even when we see you at events, I really love all the stuff you do regarding weight cutting, regarding USADA, which we're going to get into in a second. Obviously, you got Dave Meltzer, you got Luke Thomas, you've got Chuck Mindenhall and all his great work. Dave Doyle. There's so many people out there that do a great job. So MMAfighting.com is staying very strong. But we don't have a lot of time with you, Mark. So just quickly, obviously UFC Singapore wasn't the most stacked fight night this past weekend, but obviously very notable. Leon Edwards getting a big win over Cowboy Cerrone. What did you think of his win in general? I think the notion is that it was a very good performance towards the end. Maybe he kept it a little bit safe for fans' liking, but probably the smart thing when you're going up against a veteran like Cerrone. What do you think the win does for him? Because I know he's sort of talking about how he's the face of the UK MMA. I think it's pretty undeniable to say that right now that would go to Darren Till in the wake of Bisping leaving. But in general, for the division, what do you think it does for Leon Edwards?
Well, I mean, it's a big deal for him. It was the biggest win of his career. Cowboy Cerrone is, when all is said and done, is going to be a first ballot UFC Hall of Famer. I don't think there's any doubt about that. For Edwards, it's just it's another notch in his belt, and it gets him further ahead in that very stacked welterweight division. He's only got one way to go. I mean, toward the top. I mean, I think he's going to get a big fight after this. And to me, it also represents what we're kind of seeing more and more over the last few months. It's almost a little bit of a passing of the torch, where some of the younger fighters in these divisions are getting wins over the established names. I feel like that kind of happened at UFC 225. Curtis Blades is someone, Overeem has been the constant guy at heavyweight for forever, and Blades got an impressive win over him. We're at Tai Tuivasa, same thing. Your boy from down there got the win over Arlovsky. I think this is a fascinating time in the sport where we're seeing some of that new blood come up, win these big fights over veterans that everyone knows, and Edwards is the latest one, on that list, I think, and he's a promising, fairly young fighter who not a lot of people know, exciting, and a very important part of the UFC in the UK moving forward. So I think it's good all around. Cowboy is always going to be Cowboy. He's always going to be popular, but this gives Edwards kind of that rub, and allows him to elevate himself in that division and also in the eyes of fans.
And it'll be interesting to see if he gets this Masvidal fight next. But speaking of guys going up the division and making their name in the UFC, what about the flip side of the coin? Guys who have had an incredible career are now on the way out of the UFC. And we're, of course, talking about Josh Barnett. Could be talking about a number of people, guys like Lyoto Machida, but we're talking about Josh Barnett, who has been let go from the UFC and hasn't really fought in quite some time, but still is a big major draw, especially considering that there are still a lot of fights for him to be made outside of the UFC. What was your reaction when you saw that sort of Josh was going to be leaving the UFC and sort of going off on what seems like a bit of an adventure around the world?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't totally surprised by it because the USADA situation, he got a bit of a raw deal. Yeah. It was really interesting, guys, because with USADA, pretty much across the board, if you test positive for a prohibited substance for yourself, under this USADA drug testing policy with the UFC, almost every single time, if you test positive, you're going to get some kind of a sanction. Unless it was, there have been a few different cases where meldonium in Russia and some of its neighboring countries, that was like a late addition to the list, and some guys kind of got off on that because it was they took it before it was banned. And then clenbuterol, Mexico, China have issues with clenbuterol being contaminated in their meat. So guys have gotten off from those two things. But something like what Josh Barnett tested positive for, almost no one has gotten off. Even if it was a tainted supplement, they've gotten some kind of a suspension, whether it be 6 months, 9 months, what have you. Yoel Romero, Tim Means come to mind as people who they proved that they were on. It was a tainted supplement that caused the positive test. But Josh Barnett fought. He fought hard because he showed the tainted supplement. They wanted it to They wanted to suspend him anyway, even though he showed it was a tainted supplement like Romero and Means. And he went to arbitration, and he went through the whole process. He had good legal representation, and he was the first person to really beat USADA. And that was a huge thing for him, but it cost him 18 months of his career. This is a guy who's, he's 40, he's in his 40s now, right? I think, or very late 30s. He's on the back end certainly. So time is of the essence for him. Luckily, he does a lot of other things. He does commentary for pro wrestling. He does some grappling. He does some pro wrestling in the ring. I think it was only a matter of time, because I don't think it was ever going to work out after this. After he lost all that time with the UFC, I'm glad that they did the right thing in letting him go, because they could have been jerks about it and kind of kept him under contract or froze his contract, what have you. And I'm excited to see Josh Barnett fight for Ryzen or fight for Bellator. How many cool fights are there for Josh Barnett and Bellator? Barnett versus Fedor is a fight that we always wanted to see over the years. It could happen now. Josh Barnett in KSW, against Pujanowski. There are so many interesting fights for him outside the UFC. Josh Barnett is a guy that I don't want to see kind of in the mix in like the contender, like fighting guys like Tai Tuivasa. I want to see him fight big fights against veteran fighters who are big draws like he is. And I want to see him do some pro wrestling too. I'm a pro wrestling fan, so I'd love to see Josh Barnett wrestle for New Japan and fight for Ryzen. That would be amazing to me. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
And I guess it's kind of an unfortunate situation for Josh that he did lose a lot of time in his career. But at the same time, him going to, say, Bellator or Rise, and it could be great because those are places where he's going to be celebrated as opposed to in the UFC. Chances are they're probably going to try, like you mentioned, probably try and feed him to guys like, maybe not a Curtis Blades, but like a Tai Tuivasa and try and, bring up the younger contenders. Whereas, who knows, he might be in this, Bellator Grand Prix if things work out. I'd be curious about that. But I was
Barnett versus Crow Cop. Think of all the possible fights. He could fight Crow Cop for Ryzen this year. The possibilities are out there.
I do think, though, it was obviously, and everybody's sentiments are the same, that it was disappointing that this arbitration process did take so long between him and USADA, and he lost so much time. I wonder if you think it's a tough situation, because if USADA has a bit of a conflict of interest in the sense that their job is essentially, to catch cheaters or catch the bad guys, and if they're not catching people, they're essentially not doing their job, or at least they're not proving to be effective, and Barnett sort of felt like they were out to get him. I wonder if there's a sense of truth to that, and that's why this took so long. And also, in the wake of Lyoto Machida leaving the UFC, going to Bellator, he spoke about how he gave Scott Coker his word that, if he gives him a certain offer, he will move over to Bellator. The UFC matched that offer, and Lyoto Machida still chose to go over to Bellator. I wonder how much of that has to do with obviously not having to go through USADA anymore. Lyoto Machida also being a bit of a casualty in a case that a lot of people thought was a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, Lyoto Machida got a 18-month suspension from USADA for using an IV that had a banned substance in it, and that banned substance is 7-keto DHEA, if I'm remembering off the top of my head. Some of this stuff is kind of difficult to pronounce and remember after all these technical names of substance and stuff. That's a substance that people would argue shouldn't even be on the WADA list, that it doesn't even do anything for you. It doesn't have any performance-enhancing benefits. So he got popped for that, and he was out for 18 months. And again, a guy who's later on in his career, that's 18 months that he could be making money to feed his family. I can understand why you'd be upset about it. I'm all for anti-doping, and I think most of the time USADA does a very good job. And I think that the fighters who are in the primes of their careers feel good about USADA because they don't want their opponent to be doping, and they don't want to feel they have to be doping if their opponent is. You know what I mean? So I think that at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing, but I also can understand why people don't want to deal with it, especially guys who are late in their careers. They take a supplement that's tainted and they're out all this time where they could be making money. So I think I understand where Lyoto Machida is coming from. If it was based on that, I'm sure it was based on many different factors.
Sure.
And Bellator, I think Bellator has proven itself as a very interesting alternative for fighters. This Rory McDonald, Gegard Mousasi fight coming up, two guys who are top 5, if not top 3, top 2 in their divisions in the world. fighting each other for Bellator. So just like Barnett, there are very interesting fights out there for Lyoto Machida. A lot of very interesting fights.
And it's interesting because the UFC are sort of bleeding fighters here and there, and there are some gaps in the division. So from time to time, some of these fighters do really come in handy. I'm just wondering, do you think the UFC made a mistake by not trying to negotiate with Lyoto before his last fight and sort of letting it play out just to see if they can sort of get a cheaper deal with him in the long run if he was going to lose to Vitor Belfort?
See, that actually surprised me a lot, Machida, because and I kind of got killed for this on Twitter a little bit when I said it was a huge acquisition for Bellator.
Yeah.
And what I meant about that is that Lyoto Machida is 40 years old. He's not in the prime of his career, but he's obviously still competitive in the middleweight division. But more than that, he's still a draw, especially in Brazil. If you look at Lyoto Machida's social media following, he has one of the biggest ones in all of the UFC. He's got like 1 million followers on Instagram. Bellator can go to Brazil like right now and do a show with Lyoto Machida headlining against someone. That's what I meant when I say it was a huge acquisition, because it opens them up in different markets. Bellator has never been to Brazil, but now they've developed a roster where they have Vanderlei Silva, they have Douglas Lima, they have Rafael Carvalho, they have the Pitbull brothers. They could put on a really big show in Brazil right now and make a lot of money from that. It's a big market for them. It's an expansion market. So I think it's a big deal for him to go there. And these Bellator is kind of taking away, kind of chipping away at UFC. But I think Machida, as far as the name goes, and he just knocked out Vitor Belfort, granted, who's also past his prime, but it was a highlight reel knockout. It was an incredible knockout. The guy can still fight, and he's still a big name. I think that was a really big pickup for Bellator.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned it perfectly. They're sort of ticking away and they're slowly sort of getting fighters. But if you look at it, Bellator now compared to a year or two ago, for example, their heavyweight division, even though a lot of these heavyweights are past their prime, they got some huge names there. They got a tournament going. They got Lyoto Machida. They got Gegard Mousasi. They got guys like Ori McDonald, Ryan Bader. Even guys like Phil Davis. It seems like they're really starting to really build out their roster. What do you think of the Bellator that we're sort of seeing now compared to that Bellator a year or two ago? Do you think they're sort of on the right track to building a compelling roster for the future?
I think so, and I think that all of these moves they're making now, even with some of the older guys, and they're getting criticized for it, but I think the plan is that they need to have main events right now, right? Because they need to sell their product in the present day, while their big prospects, the Aaron Picos of the world, the Ed Ruths of the world, the Joey Davises of the world, while they mature and they get to that point where they can draw on their own, the way that Scott Coker and Rich Chow developed Luke Rockhold, Daniel Cormier, Tyron Woodley, kind of from the bottom up. So Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, etc. So those guys, the prospects, are not ready yet. They're not ready to headline these cards. They're not ready to even co-headline these cards. So in the meantime, while they're getting their reps, while they're getting their fights, while they're putting on some highlight reel performances like Pico, you need to have someone headlining these cards. And that's where these guys come in. The Machidas of the world, and the Chael Sonnens, and the Fedors, et cetera, the Crow Cops, the Roy Nelsons, the Matt Mitriones, the guys that are, maybe in their late 30s, but in 4 years, when Aaron Pico is one of the biggest stars in the sport, those are going to be the guys that bridge the gap to get there. So I think there is a plan. It's not going as fast as some people would like it to go, because that's just the world we're in, right? Everyone wants the quick, all right, now all of a sudden Bellator is right there with the UFC overnight. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen that way. But in 4 years, when I think Aaron Pico is as good of a prospect as we've ever seen in the sport, he could be a guy that makes a big difference for them in a few years. They need to bridge the gap to get to that point.
They got to have their Chris Jericho surprising everybody on Bellator and interrupting the Rock moment to really solidify that war. Yeah, but look, it's happening. It's all coming together. Marc, thank you so much for your time. Guys, again, follow Marc on Twitter at Marc_Raimondi, of course. Amazing work coming up in MMA fighting. We know Luke is now taking over the MMA hour. But Marc, just a couple of other things, because there's so many amazing things happening on MMA fighting. From all the fantastic video content to all the great articles, what are a couple of things people can kind of look forward to leading into UFC 226? And also, speaking of the coverage, what's it going to be like now that Ariel's gone? Is Luke going to be doing primarily all the fight week interviews? What can sort of fans expect?
Yeah, so that we're still figuring things out. We got some things that are under wraps right now.
Some surprises.
Maybe some surprises. You might be seeing a few other people on our staff more often on video.
Nice.
Not going to say anything officially right now, but kind of stay tuned for that. I mean, next week is the big one. Next week is UFC 226. So Sean and I will be in Las Vegas. Esther and Casey will be in Las Vegas. Of course, our video and photo team will be there, and then we'll be out there. You know how we do. Are you guys going? Are you guys going? Coming out for that?
Unfortunately, no, they didn't. The flights didn't quite work out. But we knew you guys were going, and maybe we'll live vicariously through you, much like we do in many other situations.
Well, we will miss you. It's always fun having you guys out there, but yeah, we'll be on the ground. I mean, you guys know how how we do when we're there. We bust our butts, and we do the best possible work as possible. And of course, the MMA beat is going to carry on. There'll be an MMA beat on Thursday. Same time as usual. That will carry on. The MMA hour is going to carry on, and we'll have some new things coming down the stretch as well.
Well, it's exciting times over at MMA Fighting, guys. Make sure to check out the website. It's going to be exciting lead week of coverage from Marc and the team. Marc, thank you so much for your time. It's great to see you on video. You're a handsome man. This has to be what the definition of the subtle art of seduction is.
But it's very much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Marc. Have a great one. Bye. Bye-bye. There he is, guys. Marc Raimondi. Always appreciate him giving us his time out of his super busy schedule and jumping on with us to chew the fat and give us some analysis. A great chat, I think it was. And in general, that's pretty much it, guys. That's the end of the episode. And Dennis, I have to say, take my hat off to you. You did a great job bringing this episode together, getting a sexy lineup of guests on the program. Jake Matthews, straight after UFC Singapore, giving us the dirt on fighters, asking him to politely stop calling them out because they were bothered. And also, I love his story about Tito Ortiz getting everybody pumped up, rallying the troops at these events. Dan Hooker giving us a tour of the Dan Hooker Mobile. Javier Mendez joining us straight from the AK offices, helping us preview UFC 226 a little bit, giving us the scoop on DC and Khabib. Israel Adesanya showing off his fancy beanie, talking about Brad Tavares. And Tito Ortiz giving us the scoop on this Chuck Liddell fight and how close it really is to happening. And it seems like it is going to go ahead with Goldenboy Promotions, which I think is the most it's been confirmed in a long time. So, and of course, Marc Raimondi himself. So, a great show.
That's right, Cass. A lot of new friends and old friends. And we wish you all our Submission Radio friends and family a good weekend. We will be back next week with a Submission Radio UFC 226 preview show. It's going to be a fun one. We'll catch you guys then.